The quantum destabilization alarm shrieked through Tony Stark's helmet HUD as reality fractured around him. One moment, he was in his Malibu lab, calibrating the bleeding edge armor's dimensional energy matrix. The next, a cascade of violet lightning consumed everything, and the laws of physics forgot how to behave. His armor's nanomachines screamed warnings in 15 different languages, while Jarvis's voice fragmented into digital chaos. Through the kaleidoscope of collapsing space, Tony caught glimpses of impossible things. Galaxies folded like origami, stars burning backward, and something vast and invisible that felt like consciousness itself, woven through the fabric of space. "Tony!" Rhodey's voice cut through the interference. War Machine's bulkier frame tumbling through the quantum maelstrom beside him. His friend had been in the lab's testing chamber, running diagnostics on the new sonic cannon array when the experiment went catastrophically wrong. Now both of them were falling through the cracks between universes, their armor the only thing keeping them from being scattered across infinite dimensions. The rift spat them out with the violence of a dying star. Tony's sensors went haywire as they materialized in orbit around a desert planet. Twin suns blazing in a star system his databases didn't recognize. His armor's arc reactor pulsed with energy feedback, the quantum destabilization having supercharged its output temporarily. Beside him, Rhodey's War Machine armor sparked with residual dimensional energy, weapon systems flickering as they rebooted. "Status report," Tony demanded, his HUD flooding with data that made absolutely no sense. Jarvis was silent for 3 agonizing seconds, an eternity for an AI. "Sir, I cannot establish satellite uplink. GPS is non-functional. Stellar cartography matches no known configurations in any database. Atmospheric analysis of the planet below suggests breathable air, but..." Jarvis paused, something Tony had never heard the AI do from uncertainty. "Sir, the electromagnetic spectrum readings are anomalous. There appears to be an energy field permeating all matter in this system that my sensors cannot properly classify." Translation: "We're not in Kansas anymore," Rhodey said, his armor's heavier weaponry tracking the empty space around them with military precision. "Tony, where the hell are we?" "Working on it." Tony's mind raced through possibilities, his genius brain already adapting to the impossible situation. The quantum rift had been designed to tap into zero-point energy from adjacent dimensional spaces. Instead, it had punched through to somewhere else entirely. The physics here felt wrong, not broken, but operating under slightly different rules. His repulsors were functional, but the energy signature they produced created ripples in that strange, pervasive field Jarvis had detected. "Wherever we are, the locals are going to notice us real quick. These arc reactor signatures are lighting us up like Christmas trees on every sensor band." As if summoning them through sheer dramatic irony, 2 wedge-shaped starfighters screamed past their position, engines trailing blue hyperspace radiation. The craft were elegant in a brutalist way, all sharp angles and aggressive posturing, with laser cannons that swiveled to track the armored humans floating in the void. "Rhodey, defensive pattern Sierra. Do not fire unless fired upon." Tony's tactical subroutines analyzed the starfighter's design. Advanced, but not beyond Earth technology. Fusion-based propulsion, directed energy weapons. Dangerous, but manageable. The lead starfighter's cockpit canopy revealed a figure in white armor, and Tony's audio sensors picked up a transmission in a language Jarvis immediately began parsing. The translation came through fractured and uncertain. Unidentified vessels. Republic space. Stand down or... Vessels. Rhodey's confusion mirrored Tony's. We're not ships, we're... The second starfighter opened fire. Twin bolts of red energy lanced through space, and Tony's combat instincts took over. He dove, repulsors flaring. The plasma bolts, because that's what they were, superheated plasma contained in magnetic fields, missed by meters. His HUD calculated trajectories, energy outputs, and threat assessments in microseconds. These weren't warning shots. These were kill shots. Hostile engagement authorized, Tony snapped, and both he and Rhodey became blurs of motion. War Machine's shoulder-mounted minigun spun up, firing a stream of depleted uranium rounds that sparked off the lead starfighter's shields. The pilots clearly hadn't expected return fire from what they thought were small vessels. They broke formation, executing combat maneuvers that would have made any Earth pilot blackout from G-forces. Tony went high, Rhodey went low, their combat synchronization perfect after years of fighting together. Iron Man's repulsor blasts struck the trailing fighter's engine, not to destroy, but to disable. The craft spiraled, emergency thrusters engaging, and Tony's sensors tracked it, beginning a controlled descent toward the desert planet below. "We've got incoming," Rhodey warned. Tony's sensors confirmed it. A massive triangular warship dropping out of what his instruments could only describe as a rupture in space itself. The vessel was over a kilometer long, bristling with weapons, its hull a statement of brutal military efficiency. The design aesthetic screamed authoritarian government, and Tony's reactor core pulsed with increased output as his armor prepared for serious combat. But the warship didn't fire. Instead, a new transmission cut through every frequency, and this voice carried weight, calm, controlled, almost amused. Jarvis's translation subroutines had adapted enough to render it clearly. Unidentified armored personnel, you have violated Republic space and engaged our patrol. Power down your weapons and prepare to be taken into custody. Continued resistance will be met with overwhelming force. Tony and Rhodey hovered in the void between the planet and the warship, their armor's reactors humming with barely contained power. Through his faceplate, Tony could see the massive vessel's hangar bays opening, dozens more starfighters launching. His tactical analysis was clear. They could fight, probably take down a significant number of enemy craft, but that warship's main guns could crack a moon. This wasn't a fight they needed right now. "Rhodey, we need intel more than we need a body count. Play nice." "I hate playing nice," Rhodey muttered, but his weapons powered down to standby mode. Tony opened a transmission on all frequencies, letting his armor's speakers carry his voice across the void with typical Stark confidence. "This is Tony Stark and Colonel James Rhodes of Earth. We're not your enemy, we're not invading your republic, and we're especially not interested in whatever bureaucratic nightmare you call custody. We had a bit of an interdimensional travel mishap. So how about we talk this over like reasonable sentients before someone does something that requires expensive repairs?" The silence that followed lasted exactly 4 seconds. Then a new voice came through, younger, male, carrying a hint of cocky confidence that reminded Tony uncomfortably of himself at 25. "Interdimensional. Master, did he just say interdimensional?" I heard him. "Ahsoka." Another voice, older, measured, with a kind of authority that came from experience rather than rank. Bring them in, carefully, and prepare a security detail. Something tells me this is going to be a very interesting conversation. As tractor beams locked onto their armor, technology that absolutely should not work on them but somehow did, Tony Stark looked at the planet below, the impossible warship above, and the twin suns burning in an alien sky. His genius mind was already cataloging anomalies, analyzing opportunities, and calculating angles. Wherever they were, whatever this republic was, they'd just made one hell of an entrance. And knowing his luck, things were about to get significantly more complicated. If you want to see more characters enter the Star Wars galaxy, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character you'd want to see in the comments below. May the Force be with you. The hangar bay of the Republic Venator-class Star Destroyer was organized chaos given physical form. Clone troopers in white armor with orange markings moved with practiced efficiency, their weapons trained on the two armored figures being guided down by tractor beams. Tony's sensors cataloged everything, the massive LAT gunships hanging from overhead rails, starfighters being serviced by maintenance droids that moved with surprising fluidity, and the energy signatures that suggested this ship's power core was fusion-based but operating at efficiency levels that shouldn't be possible with that technology. "Jarvis, please tell me you're recording all of this," Tony muttered as his boots touched the deck plating. The artificial gravity felt slightly lighter than Earth standard, and his armor automatically adjusted its stabilizers. "Every sensor reading is being archived, sir, though I should note that the pervasive energy field I detected earlier is significantly stronger inside this vessel. It appears to be concentrated around certain individuals." Rhodey landed beside him with the heavier thud of War Machine's additional armor plating, his helmet's external speakers picking up the clicking of dozens of weapons being aimed in their direction. "Tony, I count 47 hostiles with line of sight, another 20 in elevated positions. Whatever play you're making, make it fast." When have I ever not had a plan? Tony's faceplate retracted, nanomachines flowing back to reveal his face. The psychological impact of showing his humanity was calculated. These people had called them armored personnel, which meant they understood the concept of someone inside the armor. Rhodey followed suit, his faceplate sliding back to reveal his stern military bearing. The clone troopers shifted uncomfortably. Several raised their weapons higher, and Tony caught fragments of communication through their helmet comlinks. Phrases like "not droids" and "human" and something about protocols. Then the crowd parted, and three figures walked through with the kind of confidence that came from being extremely dangerous and knowing it. The lead figure was a young man in dark robes, sandy hair touching his shoulders, with blue eyes that held both warmth and something harder underneath. Beside him walked a teenage Togruta girl with blue and white head tails, her orange skin marked with white facial patterns and twin lightsabers hanging from her belt. The third was older, bearded, his robes more traditional, and his entire bearing screamed, "Diplomat who could kill you 17 ways before you hit the ground." Tony's threat assessment subroutines went into overdrive. The weapons at their belts weren't blasters. His sensors detected focused plasma contained in some kind of electromagnetic field, but the energy source was that same anomalous field Jarvis kept detecting. And the way these three moved, the way space seemed to acknowledge them differently. His genius mind recognized patterns even when it couldn't explain them. "Well," the younger man said, stopping a respectful 10 meters away, his hand resting casually near his weapon. "Interdimensional travelers, that's a new one." His eyes scanned both armored suits with undisguised fascination. "I'm Anakin Skywalker, Jedi Knight of the Republic. This is my Padawan, Ahsoka Tano, and Jedi Master Obi-Wan Kenobi. You've entered Republic space during a time of war, gentlemen. So let's start with a simple question. Are you working for the Separatists?" "The who now?" Rhodey asked, his military training keeping his body language neutral but ready. Tony's mind was already 3 steps ahead, processing the term Jedi, the religious-sounding title Knight, and the political implications of a republic at war with Separatists. Civil war, probably. His armor's sensors were feeding him biometric data on all 3. Elevated heart rates, focused attention, and something his instruments couldn't quite measure that seemed to radiate from them like heat from a furnace. Let me answer that with a question of my own. Where exactly are we? Because my instruments say we're in a binary star system approximately 42,000 light-years from Earth, which is impossible for about 15 different reasons, not least of which is that we left Earth roughly 9 minutes ago. Obi-Wan's eyebrows rose slightly. 42,000 light-years. My dear fellow, you're much farther from home than that. Earth isn't in any Republic star charts, which means you're either from the unknown regions or... He paused, stroking his beard thoughtfully. "You said interdimensional. You weren't speaking metaphorically." "The quantum rift experiment opened a doorway through dimensional barriers," Tony explained, deciding that technical honesty was the best policy when you needed information fast. "We got pulled through before we could shut it down. So unless you've got a PhD in theoretical physics and access to exotic matter, we're stuck here until I can figure out how to reverse engineer the process." Ahsoka stepped forward, her head-tails twitching with curiosity. "Master, I don't sense them in the Force at all. It's like they're not even there." "I noticed, Ahsoka." Anakin's expression shifted to something more guarded. No Force presence at all, not even the faint signature that Force null beings have. It's like looking at a void shaped like a person. Tony's danger sense, the one that had kept him alive through Afghanistan, Sokovia, and dozens of other near-death experiences, started pinging. These 3 kept referencing something called the Force, with the kind of reverence people usually reserved for physics-defying concepts. And they were clearly disturbed that he and Rhodey didn't register on whatever sensor system they were using. "Let me address the elephant in the hangar," Tony said, gesturing to encompass the entire situation. "You've got some kind of energy field that my sensors can detect but can't classify. You're calling it the Force. I'm guessing it's significant in your culture. And the fact that we don't interact with it has you concerned because it's probably how you measure threats. Am I close?" Obi-Wan's diplomatic smile didn't quite reach his eyes. "Perceptive. The Force binds all living things in the galaxy, Mr. Stark. It connects us, guides us. For it to not touch you at all suggests either a technology we've never encountered, or something far more concerning. Or maybe we're just from a universe where your Force doesn't exist." Rhodey interjected, his military pragmatism cutting through the mystical implications. "Look, Jedi, we're not here to cause trouble. We're not spies, we're not soldiers for your enemies, and we're sure as hell not looking to get involved in your war. We just want to figure out how to get home." Anakin's hand moved away from his lightsaber, and the tension in the hangar dropped several degrees. "Fair enough. But that armor of yours?" His eyes gleamed with unmistakable interest. "When you disabled our patrol fighter, your weapons moved faster than anything I've seen outside of Jedi reflexes. And those energy weapons you're carrying aren't based on any technology in our databases. The Separatists would pay a fortune for gear like that. Which is exactly why we're not selling," Tony said flatly. "The armor is mine, the technology is mine, and I don't do weapons development for governments anymore. Had a bad experience with that a few years back." Obi-Wan nodded slowly, as if filing that information away. "Admirable. However, the Supreme Chancellor will want to speak with you. Visitors from another dimension appearing in the middle of a war tend to attract attention from the highest levels of government. I'm afraid we'll need to escort you to Coruscant." Tony's HUD was already pulling up astronomical data, trying to match the star patterns visible through the hangar's atmospheric shield to any possible configuration. Coruscant, a city name, maybe a planet. Probably their capital if it's where the Supreme Chancellor resided. His mind was calculating angles, assessing leverage, and determining optimal strategies for maintaining independence while gathering intelligence. "Before we agree to anything," Rhodey said, his colonel's voice carrying military authority that made several clone troopers straighten unconsciously, "we need some ground rules. 1. Our armor stays on, fully functional, no weapons locked down. 2. We're consultants, not prisoners or recruits. 3. You share information about this galaxy with us. We'll share what we know about interdimensional physics. Fair trade." Ahsoka grinned, her youthful face lighting up. "I like them, Master. They're almost as stubborn as you are." Anakin snorted, but his expression was thoughtful as he studied both armored humans. "All right, consultants, but understand this. We're in the middle of a war that's tearing the galaxy apart. The Separatists use droid armies controlled by a corrupt corporate alliance. They've attacked civilian populations, enslaved entire systems, and they won't hesitate to capture you for your technology if they get the chance. The Republic isn't perfect." His jaw tightened slightly. "But we're trying to hold things together." Tony recognized that look. He'd worn it himself in the mirror after returning from Afghanistan, after Ultron, after every time he'd realized the world was more complicated and darker than his genius could fix. This Anakin Skywalker was a soldier who'd seen too much, fighting a war with no clear end in sight. He was dangerous, idealistic, and probably the type to make impulsive decisions when pushed. In other words, exactly the kind of person Tony both understood and worried about. "All right, Skywalker, we'll play nice with your Supreme Chancellor. But I'm going on record right now saying that if this turns into some kind of conscription attempt, you're going to discover that my armor has a lot more tricks than disabling starfighter engines." Obi-Wan's diplomatic smile returned, warmer this time. "Duly noted, Mr. Stark, though I suspect you'll find Supreme Chancellor Palpatine to be quite reasonable. He's a skilled politician who understands the value of willing cooperation over coercion." He gestured toward the hangar exit. "Shall we? The trip to Coruscant takes several hours in hyperspace. That should give us time to discuss the finer points of your remarkable armor and perhaps share information about our respective universes." As they walked through the corridors of the Star Destroyer, clone troopers parting to let them pass, Tony's sensors mapped every detail. The ship's architecture, the energy conduits running through the walls, the subtle way the three Jedi moved as if they could sense threats before they materialized. Jarvis was building a comprehensive database, but something nagged at Tony's instincts. These Jedi talked about sensing people through this force of theirs. They built an entire philosophy around it, and he and Rhodey were completely invisible to it, which made them unpredictable variables in whatever complex political-military situation they'd stumbled into. In Tony's experience, unpredictable variables either became extremely valuable or extremely dead very quickly. He intended to make sure they landed firmly in the first category. Coruscant was a monument to civilization's arrogance, rendered in durasteel and transparasteel, a planet-wide city that blazed against the void like a jewel carved from controlled chaos. Tony's sensors struggled to process the sheer scale as their Republic transport descended through layers of air traffic that would make Los Angeles rush hour look orderly. Towers stretched kilometers into the sky, their surfaces crawling with speeders moving in patterns his AI finally classified as organized after 7 minutes of analysis. The energy consumption readings alone made his engineer's brain hurt. This single planet was burning through more power per second than Earth produced in a year. "Welcome to the capital of the Republic," Obi-Wan said from his seat across the transport's passenger bay, noting Tony's fascination with undisguised amusement. 1 trillion permanent residents with billions more passing through daily. It's been the galactic seat of government for over 1,000 generations. That's over 25,000 years, Rhodey calculated quietly. Tony, their civilization has been spacefaring longer than humans have had written language. Tony didn't respond, but his mind was recalibrating expectations aggressively. He'd assumed they'd entered a galaxy at roughly equivalent tech level to Earth, maybe a few decades ahead. But a civilization with 25,000 years of continuous spacefaring culture meant their technology wasn't just advanced. It was mature, refined, and probably hiding complexities his genius would need days to unpack. The fact that they were still fighting wars with directed energy weapons and fighters suggested either technological stagnation or, more likely, that warfare had reached some kind of equilibrium point where certain weapons were simply optimal. The transport banked toward a massive ziggurat structure that dominated the skyline like a mountain carved by architects with godlike ambitions. The Jedi Temple, Ahsoka had called it during the journey. The building radiated purpose, its 5 spires reaching toward the sky like fingers grasping for something beyond sight. Tony's sensors detected that anomalous energy field concentrated heavily around the structure, pulsing with what almost resembled a heartbeat. "The Supreme Chancellor is meeting us at the Senate building," Anakin explained, his attention focused on his datapad, where mission reports scrolled past in a language Jarvis was still parsing. "Master Yoda wanted to meet you first at the temple, but Palpatine requested an immediate audience. Political curiosity, probably. You're the first confirmed interdimensional visitors in recorded history. People are going to want to study us," Rhodey observed with military wariness. "Run tests, ask questions, figure out if we're threats or opportunities." "Probably both," Obi-Wan admitted with refreshing honesty. The Republic is desperate for any advantage in this war. Your armor's capabilities alone could shift the balance of power significantly. I suspect we'll have senators lining up to offer you contracts, resources, and political favors in exchange for your technology. Tony's arc reactor pulsed steadily, its blue glow visible through his armor's chest plate, even with the nanomachines in their compact configuration. Let me be crystal clear about something. The armor isn't for sale, trade, or negotiation. I don't care if your Supreme Whatever offers me a moon. The arc reactor technology stays with me. I've seen what happens when my weapons end up in the wrong hands. Not making that mistake again. Anakin looked up from his datapad, and something in his expression suggested he understood that sentiment more than Tony would have expected. There are weapons dealers in the galaxy who'd kill you for technology like that. The Separatists have agents everywhere, even in the Senate. You'll need protection. We are the protection, Rhodey said flatly. The absolute confidence in his voice made Ahsoka's hand drift unconsciously toward her lightsaber. The transport settled onto a landing platform attached to the Senate building, a mushroom-shaped structure of such ostentatious scale that Tony's first instinct was to calculate its structural engineering requirements. As the boarding ramp descended, he caught his first glimpse of the reception committee waiting for them, and his threat assessment subroutine started cataloging targets automatically. 20 Senate guards in ceremonial blue robes with energy staffs that his sensors registered as surprisingly lethal. 6 individuals in expensive civilian attire who radiated political authority the way stars radiated heat. And at the center, an elderly man in burgundy robes whose face was a masterwork of grandfatherly concern and carefully controlled power. Supreme Chancellor Palpatine looked like someone's kindly uncle, the type who'd tell stories at family gatherings and sneak you extra dessert when your parents weren't looking. But Tony hadn't survived as long as he had by trusting first impressions. And something about the way the man stood, the absolute stillness of someone who never wasted movement, triggered instincts honed by facing down terrorists, rogue AIs, and gods. Master Jedi, Palpatine's voice was warm honey over Durasteel, cultured and refined. You've brought our mysterious visitors. Excellent. His eyes settled on Tony and Rhodey, and for just a microsecond, Tony could have sworn he saw something cold and calculating flicker beneath the grandfatherly facade. Gentlemen, welcome to Coruscant. I am Supreme Chancellor Palpatine, and on behalf of the Galactic Republic, I extend our hospitality to travelers from beyond our reality itself. Truly remarkable. Tony's faceplate remained retracted as he descended the ramp, Rhodey half a step behind in perfect tactical positioning. Mr. Chancellor, Tony Stark, and this is Colonel James Rhodes. We appreciate the hospitality, though I have to say, being tractored aboard a warship wasn't exactly the welcome wagon we were hoping for. Palpatine's smile was perfectly calibrated, apologetic but understanding. An unfortunate necessity, I'm afraid. Our long-range sensors detected energy signatures unlike anything in our databases appearing in Tatooine's orbit. In these troubled times, caution must outweigh courtesy. I hope you'll forgive the overzealous response. Long-range sensors picked up our arc reactors from Coruscant? Rhodey's tone was carefully neutral, but Tony caught the implication. Either their sensor network was more sophisticated than anything on Earth, or the arc reactor signatures were punching through sensor bands in ways that shouldn't be possible. The energy readings were quite extraordinary. One of the senators interjected, a thin humanoid with blue skin and calculating eyes, unlike anything produced by known fusion cores or hypermatter reactors. My scientific advisors are most eager to understand the principles behind your technology. Tony's smile was sharp enough to cut transparent steel. I'm sure they are. Unfortunately, the arc reactor is proprietary Stark Industries technology. And since I'm pretty sure we're not in a jurisdiction where Earth patent law applies, I'm keeping it that way through good old-fashioned no. Palpatine chuckled, the sound grandfatherly and disarming. Direct and forthright. Admirable qualities. Tell me, Mr. Stark, what is it you do want? You're stranded in an unfamiliar galaxy, presumably wishing to return home. The Republic has vast resources. Perhaps we could assist each other. And there it was, the opening gambit in what Tony recognized as a negotiation that had been planned before they'd even landed. Palpatine wasn't making casual conversation. He was probing for leverage, testing boundaries, and establishing the terms of their relationship in the first 5 minutes of contact. Tony had sat across tables from weapons dealers, corporate vultures, and government officials skilled in the same dance. This man was simply better at hiding it beneath his pleasant exterior. What I want, Tony said carefully, is information. Technical specifications on your faster-than-light travel, because that quantum rift wasn't a one-way trip if I can understand the underlying physics. Access to your historical databases so I can understand what kind of galaxy we're stuck in. And maybe someone who can explain what this force thing is that everyone keeps talking about, because my sensors are detecting it but can't classify it, and that's driving me crazy. Palpatine's expression remained pleasant, but something shifted in his posture, a subtle tension that Tony's enhanced sensors caught in the micro-movements of muscle groups. The Force is complex, a mystical energy field that flows through all living things, giving the Jedi their extraordinary abilities. I'm afraid I'm no expert on such matters. I leave that to the Jedi Order. But I can certainly arrange access to our scientific databases and assign experts to assist you. In exchange for, Rhodey asked bluntly. Your insights, Palpatine said smoothly. The Separatist Alliance controls much of the Outer Rim territories. Their droid armies outnumber our clone forces 3-1 in most engagements. Your armor demonstrated capabilities that could turn entire battles. I'm not asking for your technology. His tone suggested he absolutely was, just not directly. But perhaps you might consider offering tactical consultation. Your perspective from another universe might reveal strategies we've overlooked. Tony glanced at Anakin, who was watching the exchange with poorly concealed frustration. The young Jedi clearly didn't like political maneuvering, his hand resting on his lightsaber out of habit rather than threat. Obi-Wan's expression was more controlled, but his eyes tracked Palpatine with the wariness of someone who'd navigated Senate politics before and found them distasteful. We'll consider it, Tony said, which was diplomat speak for maybe that everyone present understood meant probably not. Right now, Colonel Rhodes and I need time to assess our situation, repair any damage from the dimensional transition, and figure out our next move. So if you've got somewhere, we can set up a temporary workshop that isn't bugged with listening devices. His smile was knowing. He'd appreciate it. Palpatine's eyes crinkled with what appeared to be genuine amusement. You don't trust easily, Mr. Stark. Wise, in these uncertain times, I'll have quarters prepared in the diplomatic section of the Senate building. Fully equipped technical facilities, and I give you my word that your privacy will be respected. He paused, and his voice took on a more somber tone. The galaxy is at war, gentlemen. The Separatists are led by former Jedi Count Dooku, a man who believes the Republic has grown corrupt and weak. He may be right about the corruption, a calculated admission that made several senators shift uncomfortably. But his solution is to tear down everything and rebuild through authoritarian control. If you choose to remain neutral, I respect that. But know that neutrality becomes increasingly difficult when battle lines are drawn across every sector. It was a masterful performance, admitting the Republic's flaws while painting the opposition as worse, appealing to their sense of independence while subtly pressuring them toward alignment and establishing himself as the reasonable authority figure who understood their concerns. Tony had seen politicians work crowds before, but Palpatine operated on another level entirely. We'll keep that in mind, Tony replied non-committally. As Senate guards escorted them toward their assigned quarters, Ahsoka fell into step beside them, her youthful curiosity overriding diplomatic protocols. So your armor, how does it fly without repulsor lift technology? And what's powering those energy weapons? They don't use plasma or particle beams like our blasters. Tony found himself actually smiling at the genuine enthusiasm. Trade secret, kid. But I'll give you a hint. Controlled magnetic repulsion combined with directed thrust vectoring. The weapons are pure repulsor energy focused through. He caught himself before revealing too much. Nice try, Padawan. Almost got me there. She grinned, her montrals twitching with amusement. Master Skywalker says I'm too curious for my own good. Master Skywalker is probably right, Obi-Wan said as he joined them, his diplomatic smile back in place. But perhaps some curiosity is warranted. Mr. Stark, Colonel Rhodes, I should warn you that Coruscant has layers. Not everyone here serves the Republic's interests. There are separatist sympathizers, criminal syndicates, and opportunists who would see your technology as a prize worth killing for. The Jedi can offer protection, but you're stretched thin fighting a war. Rhodey finished. We got the briefing during the flight. Don't worry, Master Kenobi. We've dealt with people trying to steal our tech before. They usually regret it. As they reached their quarters, a suite that was somehow both luxurious and functional, with workspace that would serve for basic repairs, Tony's mind was already dissecting the political landscape. A republic fighting separatists in a civil war, led by a charismatic chancellor who played politics like a grand master. Mystical warriors with energy swords who could sense people through some kind of universal field. Technology millennia ahead of Earth, but somehow still using recognizable military doctrine. And most concerning, the way Palpatine's eyes had lingered on his arc reactor, calculating and hungry beneath the grandfatherly facade. Jarvis's voice whispered through his internal comms. Sir, I've been analyzing the Supreme Chancellor's biometric data. His heart rate remained abnormally steady throughout the conversation, even during moments that should have provoked stress responses. It's as if he was in complete control of his autonomic nervous system. Or he's exactly what he appears to be, Tony muttered. A politician so used to manipulation that lying is as natural as breathing. There is another possibility, sir. Jarvis paused in that way that meant the AI had found something concerning. The energy field that permeates this galaxy. I detected a concentration of it around the Chancellor. Faint but present. He may be one of these force-sensitive individuals. Tony's arc reactor pulsed in his chest, and he looked out the viewport at Coruscant's endless cityscape blazing against the night. They'd been in this galaxy for less than a day, and already he could feel the weight of political schemes, ancient conflicts, and competing interests pressing in from all sides. He'd told Rhodey he had a plan. That was only half true. What he had was his genius, his armor, and the absolute certainty that they'd stumbled into something far more complex and dangerous than a simple dimensional accident. Somewhere in this galaxy-spanning city, wheels were turning. Palpatine was planning, the Jedi were watching, and Tony Stark was about to remind everyone why you didn't bet against the man who built an arc reactor in a cave with a box of scraps. The workshop Tony and Rhodey had commandeered in their Senate building quarters looked like a fusion reactor had married a scrapyard and produced a technological genius for offspring. Every surface was covered with disassembled components. Rhodey's shoulder-mounted minigun lay in precision-cut pieces, while diagnostic holograms flickered around Tony's gauntlet assembly. Jarvis had hacked into the Republic's public data networks within the first hour, pulling technical specifications, historical records, and news feeds that painted a picture of a galaxy tearing itself apart. This hyperspace technology is insane, Tony muttered, his hands moving through holographic schematics that Jarvis had reconstructed from downloaded data. They're punching holes through higher dimensional space using something called a hyperdrive. The math is elegant, but the energy requirements should be impossible. Except, his fingers danced across calculations. They're using hypermatter as fuel, which according to these specs shouldn't exist, but somehow annihilates with normal matter at 99.9% efficiency. That's better than antimatter. Rhodey was running diagnostics on War Machine's targeting systems, his military pragmatism cutting through Tony's scientific enthusiasm. Focus, Tony. We've been here 6 hours, and already I've identified 3 surveillance attempts. 2 were amateur, probably senators trying to spy on us. But the third was professional. Military-grade stealth tech that your sensors barely caught. Tony's hands stilled over his work. Jarvis, analysis. The third attempt utilized technology consistent with separatist design philosophies. Sir, specifically, a probe droid employing sophisticated sensor dampening. I neutralized it with a localized EMP, but its presence suggests hostile intelligence gathering operations are active on Coruscant itself. Palpatine mentioned separatist agents in the Senate, Tony said thoughtfully. Question is, were they targeting us specifically, or is this standard espionage? Sir, incoming transmission. Jarvis's tone carried a note of interest. Source, Jedi Temple. Sender, Master Yoda. The message reads, Meet you I would. Questions have I about visitors from beyond. Come to the temple if willing you are. Tonight when fewer eyes watch. Tony and Rhodey exchanged glances. The diminutive Jedi Master had been mentioned several times during their briefings. Ancient, powerful, and supposedly the wisest member of the Jedi Council. Meeting him meant getting answers about this force phenomenon that kept nagging at Tony's scientific curiosity. It also meant leaving their secure location and potentially walking into a situation they didn't fully control. It's a tactical risk, Rhodey assessed. Unknown location, limited intel, and we'd be surrounded by Force users who could probably sense hostile intent before we acted on it. But they haven't given us reason to distrust them yet, Tony countered. The Jedi have been straightforward, even helpful, and if anyone can explain why this Force thing doesn't register us, it's probably the 900-year-old space wizard. You're actually considering trusting space wizards now. I'm considering gathering intelligence from the people who've been honest with us versus the politician who smiled too much and wanted too many things. Tony's arc reactor pulsed as his armor's nanomachines flowed over his body, the bleeding-edge suit forming in seconds. Besides, I want to see this temple. Any civilization that builds a structure that size dedicated to mysticism has either figured something out or they're compensating for something. 40 minutes later, they were flying through Coruscant's night traffic in a rented civilian speeder that Tony had immediately upgraded with his own navigation systems because the default AI was offensively stupid, according to Jarvis. The Jedi temple grew larger as they approached, its 5 spires illuminated against the city's glow like fingers reaching toward stars obscured by light pollution. Tony's sensors detected that energy field concentration again, stronger here than anywhere else on the planet. The temple's landing platform was nearly empty at this hour, occupied only by a single figure waiting with patient stillness. Master Yoda was shorter than Tony expected, barely reaching his waist, but there was something about the ancient Jedi's presence that made Tony's instincts scream warnings. This being was dangerous in ways that had nothing to do with physical size. His eyes, huge and knowing, tracked their approach with an intelligence that felt older than mountains. "Welcome, visitors from beyond," Yoda said, his voice raspy but carrying easily across the platform. "Curious about you, the Force is. Curious about you, am I?" Tony's faceplate retracted as he landed, Rhodey touching down beside him with War Machine's heavier thud. "Master Yoda, thanks for the invitation. I have about 1,000 questions about this Force thing, starting with why my sensors can detect it but can't classify it." Yoda's ears twitched, and Tony couldn't tell if it was amusement or concern. "Inside, we should talk. Listening, walls have. Even here, safe not everywhere is." He turned with surprising agility for someone his age, his Gima stick tapping against ancient stone as he led them into the temple. The interior was a study in contrasts, soaring architecture that suggested timeless permanence, combined with technology seamlessly integrated into walls and floors. Jedi in various stages of training move through corridors with purposeful grace, and every single one of them paused when Tony and Rhodey passed, their attention drawn to the armored humans like compass needles to magnetic north. "Feel you they cannot," Yoda explained as they entered a meditation chamber high in one of the temple's spires. The room was circular, its walls transparent, offering a panoramic view of Coruscant's endless cityscape. "In the Force, absent you are, like holes in the fabric of reality, shaped like men." Tony's genius brain latched onto that description immediately. Holes in the fabric of reality. That's exactly what we are, aren't we? We're not from this universe, so we don't interact with the fundamental field that connects everything here. It's not that we're invisible to your Force. We're genuinely not part of the system. Yoda settled onto a meditation cushion, his eyes closing briefly before reopening with what Tony recognized as satisfaction. Quick you are. Yes. The Force binds all living things in this galaxy. From beyond this galaxy you are, beyond this reality itself. Connected to the Force you cannot be, because rooted in its fabric you are not. Rhodey had removed his helmet, his expression thoughtful as he processed the implications. So we're outsiders on a fundamental level. That's why the Jedi can't sense our intentions or read us the way they read everyone else. Troubling this is, Yoda admitted. Rely on the Force, Jedi do. Guide us, it does. Warn us of danger, show us truth, but you... His gaze settled on Tony with uncomfortable intensity. Blank spaces you are. Act with good intentions or ill. No, we cannot, until actions taken are. Tony understood the concern immediately. The Jedi Order had operated for thousands of years, using the Force as their primary intelligence gathering and threat assessment tool. Now 2 heavily armed individuals had appeared who were completely invisible to that system. It would be like Tony trying to hack a computer network, but discovering 2 nodes that didn't show up on any scanner. Dangerous unknowns that could be anything from benign to catastrophic. So you invited us here to figure out if we're threats, Tony said bluntly. Fair enough. Let me save you some time, Master Yoda. We're not here to conquer your galaxy. We're not working for your separatists, and we're not interested in your war. We want to go home. That's it. Believe you, I do. Yoda's tone suggested he actually meant it, which was refreshing after Palpatine's political theater. But home, far it is. Perhaps impossible to reach. What then? Stay neutral, will you? Or choose sides when neutrality no longer possible is? It was the same question Palpatine had posed, but coming from Yoda, it felt less like manipulation and more like genuine concern. Tony walked to the chamber's transparent wall, looking out at the city that blazed like captured stars. Somewhere out there, fleets were mobilizing. Clone soldiers were dying. Worlds were burning in a civil war between a corrupt republic and authoritarian separatists, and neither side sounded particularly appealing. I've been the man who sold weapons to both sides, Tony said quietly. Told myself it was about keeping the balance, about profits, about staying neutral. Turned out the weapons I built were killing people I cared about, so I stopped. Built the armor to fix my mistakes instead of compounding them. He turned back to Yoda, his arc reactor glowing steady at his chest. You're asking if I'll make the same mistake twice. The answer is no. We're not giving anyone our technology. Not the Republic, not the Separatists, not even you. Yoda nodded slowly, as if Tony had passed some kind of test. Wise this is. Powerful your armor is. Change the war it could, but victory through superior weapons alone. Temporary, such victory is. Win wars, weapons do not. Win wars, people do. Their choices, their courage, their willingness to sacrifice. Pretty philosophy, Rhodey observed. But those clone troopers I saw, they're dying because someone decided to build an army of genetically identical soldiers who follow orders without question. That's not courage, Master Yoda. That's manufactured loyalty. The ancient Jedi's expression grew somber. Right, you are. Troubling the clone army is created in secret, discovered in crisis, accepted out of desperation. Question it, the Council does. But without the clones, lose the war we would. Fall the Republic would. And worse, what follows could be. Tony's tactical mind immediately caught the implication. You think someone engineered this war, created both the clone army and the crisis that required it? No, I do not, Yoda admitted, and the uncertainty in his voice was more frightening than confidence would have been. But sense something dark, I do, moving beneath the surface of events. Clouded, the Force has become. Hard to see, the future is. As if shrouded deliberately, it is. Jarvis's voice whispered through Tony's internal comms. Sir, I've been analyzing Republic Senate voting records from the past decade. There's a concerning pattern. Every major decision that escalated tensions with the Separatists was supported by a coalition of senators who have since gained significant power and wealth from the war effort. And at the center of that coalition, consistently voting for military expansion, is Supreme Chancellor Palpatine. Tony's reactor core pulsed harder as pieces began clicking into place. A war that benefited specific political actors. A crisis that justified emergency powers. An army that appeared exactly when needed. He'd seen this pattern before in Earth's history. Ambitious leaders manufacturing threats to consolidate authority. Master Yoda, Tony said carefully. Hypothetically speaking, if someone wanted to take control of your republic, how would they do it? Yoda's eyes opened fully, and for a moment Tony glimpsed something ancient and fierce beneath the grandfatherly exterior. Create crisis, they would. Offer solutions. Become indispensable. Then, when trust earned is, reveal true nature when too late to stop them, it is. His gaze sharpened. Why ask you this? Before Tony could answer, alarms shrieked through the temple's comm systems. Yoda's head snapped up, his connection to the Force clearly feeding him information faster than any technological system. Attack, there is. The Senate building, Separatist strike force. Your quarters, targeted they are. Tony and Rhodey's helmets snapped into place simultaneously, their armor's combat systems going active. Jarvis, status of our workshop. Multiple breaches detected, sir. Commando droids, highly sophisticated combat units. They're attempting to access our computer systems and... Jarvis's tone shifted to something almost insulted. They're trying to hack me. How quaint. Can you hold them? Sir, I've held off Hydra, Ultron, and that time you tried to reprogram me while drunk. These primitives are barely an inconvenience. Rhodey's weapons systems came online with predatory hums. Tony, they're hitting our quarters specifically. Someone gave them targeting data. Someone knew exactly where to find us. Someone named Count Dooku, probably, Tony said grimly. Palpatine said he was leading the Separatists. Question is, did he attack because he wants our tech, or because we're asking the wrong questions? Yoda was already moving toward the exit, his small form somehow conveying urgency despite his size. Go, you must. Protect your technology. But careful, be. Count Dooku, powerful he is. A Sith Lord, trained in the dark side. Underestimate him? Do not. Tony and Rhodey launched from the temple platform without another word, their repulsors screaming as they accelerated toward the Senate building. Below them, Coruscant's endless cityscape had erupted into chaos. Emergency speeders rushing toward the attack site, civilian traffic scattering, and in the distance, the distinctive red bolts of blaster fire painting violence across the night. Jarvis, give me a tactical overview. 24 commando droids breached the Senate building through the maintenance levels. They've eliminated 6 Senate guards and are advancing toward our quarters. However, sir, they're not alone. I'm detecting a single biosignature with energy readings consistent with those lightsaber weapons the Jedi carry. The individual is moving with extreme efficiency. 17 Senate guards down in less than 3 minutes. That's our Sith Lord, Rhodey assessed. Professional, fast, and here for our tech. Then let's show him what Earth technology can do when you piss off the wrong engineers. Tony's armor screamed through the air, his HUD painting threat vectors and calculating trajectories. The Senate building was burning in 3 locations, and his enhanced vision caught commando droids. Sleek, menacing machines with none of the awkwardness of the standard battle droids he'd seen in files, cutting through defenders with brutal precision. War Machine came in high, Tony went low, and both of them opened fire with synchronized aggression that turned military doctrine into devastating art. Rhodey's minigun shredded 2 commando droids before they could react, the depleted uranium rounds punching through their armor, plating like tissue paper. Tony's repulsors took out 4 more, the concussive energy literally atomizing their torsos. Targets eliminated, hostile force reduced by 25%, Jarvis reported. Remaining units converging on our position. And sir, the individual with the lightsaber is moving to intercept you specifically. Tony saw him then, a tall figure in dark robes moving across the building's exterior with impossible grace, leaping between levels that should have been fatal falls. His lightsaber burned crimson against the night, and even through his armor's sensors, Tony could tell this being was dangerous in ways that transcended normal combat parameters. Count Dooku landed on the platform outside their quarters with aristocratic precision, his aged face set in an expression of cultured disdain. Ah, the interdimensional travelers. How convenient that you've saved me the trouble of hunting you across Coruscant. His voice was refined, educated, the accent suggesting nobility. Surrender your armor and the technology within it, and I'll grant you swift deaths. Resist, and I'll take what I want from your corpses. Tony's targeting systems locked onto the Sith Lord, every weapon in his arsenal primed and ready. I don't surrender. It's kinda my thing. Ask the last 10 guys who tried. Dooku's lightsaber hummed, and his smile was cold as the void between stars. Then let us see how your technology fares against the power of the dark side. Count Dooku moved like time itself had granted him special dispensation to ignore its normal flow. His crimson lightsaber carved through the air in elegant arcs that Tony's combat prediction algorithms classified as simultaneously beautiful and lethal, each movement economical and precise. The Sith Lord closed the distance between them with a force-enhanced leap that covered 20 meters in a heartbeat, his blade descending toward Tony's chest with killing intent. Tony's repulsors fired at point-blank range. The concussive blast should have sent Dooku tumbling across the platform like a rag doll. Instead, the Sith Lord's free hand extended, and that anomalous energy field Jarvis kept detecting suddenly concentrated into a visible distortion. The repulsor blast hit what Tony's sensors could only describe as a telekinetic barrier and dispersed around Dooku like water around a rock. Impressive technology, Dooku said, his lightsaber continuing its deadly arc without pause. But the Force trumps machinery, boy. The crimson blade struck Tony's armor, and everything went wrong in ways Tony's genius brain immediately started cataloging. The lightsaber wasn't just hot. It was plasma contained in an electromagnetic field operating at temperatures that exceeded the surface of most stars. His armor's nanomachines tried to compensate, flowing away from the point of contact, but the lightsaber's cutting edge was already scoring deep into his chest plate. Alarms shrieked through his HUD as structural integrity dropped to 83% from a single glancing blow. Tony kicked his boot repulsors to maximum thrust, hurling himself backward while simultaneously firing his wrist-mounted missiles. 6 micro-projectiles screamed toward Dooku, their targeting computers adjusted for the Sith's enhanced speed. Dooku's lightsaber became a blur of red light, deflecting 4 missiles with impossible precision. The other 2 detonated against the telekinetic barrier, and through the explosion's thermal bloom, Tony saw the Sith Lord advancing without a scratch on him. "Rhodey, this guy's defensive capabilities are off the charts." I noticed. War Machine's minigun roared, depleted uranium rounds forming a wall of lead between Dooku and Tony. The Sith Lord's lightsaber moved in patterns that shouldn't have been physically possible, deflecting hundreds of rounds per second. Several ricocheted back toward Rhodey, who had to dodge his own ammunition. "Tony, conventional weapons aren't working. His reaction time is enhanced by that force thing. He's reading the trajectory before we fire." Dooku extended his hand again, and lightning, actual electricity, impossible voltage crackling with dark side energy, erupted from his fingertips toward War Machine. Rhodey's armor's insulation systems screamed warnings as the force lightning wrapped around him, seeking gaps in his defensive plating. His suit's power indicators flickered, dropping from 100% to 94% in seconds. "Fascinating," Dooku mused, still advancing with unhurried confidence. "Your armor resists force lightning better than I expected. The insulation technology is quite sophisticated. I look forward to dissecting it once you're dead." Tony's mind raced through tactical options at quantum processing speeds. Direct combat wasn't working. Dooku's force abilities gave him precognitive awareness that countered their technological advantages. The lightsaber could cut through their armor given enough sustained contact, and those telekinetic barriers made ranged attacks nearly useless. They needed to change the parameters of engagement. "Jarvis, analyze his defensive field. Find me a weakness." "Sir, the telekinetic barrier appears to be directional. He projects it toward perceived threats. When he's deflecting your missiles, there's a 0.03-second window where his rear defensive coverage drops to minimal levels. Additionally, his force lightning requires concentration. When actively using it, his lightsaber defense efficiency drops by approximately 18%. Rhodey, Pattern Omega 7. I'm the bait, you're the hammer." "Tony, that pattern assumes the target doesn't have psychic powers." "He's not psychic. He's reading probability and intent through some kind of quantum field connection. Which means if I genuinely don't know what you're going to do until you do it, he can't predict it. Trust me." Tony launched himself directly at Dooku, every weapon system firing simultaneously in an overwhelming barrage that lit up the night like a miniature sun. Repulsors, missiles, lasers, sonic cannons, everything in his arsenal screaming toward the Sith Lord in a display of firepower that would have leveled a city block. It was aggressive, reckless, and exactly what Dooku expected from an overconfident warrior relying on superior technology. Dooku's lightsaber wove patterns of defensive brilliance, his force barrier absorbing what his blade couldn't deflect. His expression was one of aristocratic disdain, as if Tony's assault was merely confirming his superiority. Is this the best your dimension has to offer? Crude weapons wielded with... War Machine hit him from behind with a kinetic impact, round-traveling at hypersonic velocity. Rhodey had circled wide during Tony's assault, positioned himself at the exact angle Jarvis had calculated, and fired the moment Dooku's attention was fully committed to Tony's frontal assault. The round struck the Sith Lord's telekinetic barrier, but from an angle he hadn't reinforced, and the kinetic energy transfer sent Dooku stumbling forward 3 steps. It was the first time the Sith Lord had been forced backward, and his expression shifted from disdain to genuine interest. Clever, using one warrior as distraction while the other exploits gaps in my defense. Your tactical coordination is excellent. He straightened his robes with a gesture that somehow conveyed both respect and threat. But you're forgetting something crucial. I'm not alone. The commando droids that had been systematically butchering their way through the Senate building's defenders suddenly swarmed the platform. 18 sophisticated killing machines moving with mechanical precision, their blaster rifles firing in coordinated patterns that Jarvis classified as professional military doctrine. Tony and Rhodey went into full combat mode, their armor's point defense systems engaging targets while their primary weapons carved through droid infantry with brutal efficiency. Tony's repulsors atomized 2 droids mid-leap. Rhodey's shoulder-mounted rocket pod turned 4 more into shrapnel. But the droids were learning, adapting their tactics in real time, spreading out to force the armored humans to divide their attention. And through it all, Dooku watched with calculating patience, his lightsaber held in a classical dueling stance, waiting for the moment when they'd be vulnerable. "Sir, Senate Guard reinforcements arriving," Jarvis reported, "and I'm detecting 3 additional biosignatures moving at high velocity toward our position. Energy readings consistent with Jedi." The reinforcements arrived like avenging angels rendered in robes and plasma blades. Anakin Skywalker crashed through the upper window, his blue lightsaber already ignited, his expression carrying the focused intensity of a warrior in his element. Ahsoka came through the side entrance, her dual lightsabers spinning in defensive patterns that deflected blaster fire back toward its sources. And Obi-Wan Kenobi emerged from the main corridor with practiced grace, his lightsaber form precise and economical. "Dooku," Obi-Wan's voice carried disappointment rather than anger. "Attacking the Senate itself? Have you abandoned all pretense of honor?" "Honor?" Dooku's aristocratic disdain returned full force. "The Senate is a pit of corruption and incompetence, Kenobi. I'm simply accelerating its inevitable collapse." His eyes tracked to Tony and Rhodey. "And claiming valuable assets that could shift the balance of this war." Anakin moved to engage Dooku immediately, his aggressive gem-so form contrasting sharply with the Sith Lord's elegant Makashi style. Their lightsabers clashed with sounds that set Tony's teeth on edge, energy blades screaming as they ground against each other. Ahsoka and Obi-Wan carved through the remaining commando droids with the kind of synchronized efficiency that came from years of training together. Tony took the opportunity to assess their situation. His armor's chest plate was damaged, but not critically. The nanomachines were already restructuring, filling in the lightsaber scoring with redundant plating. His power reserves were at 87%, still plenty for sustained combat. Rhodey's suit had taken damage from the Force lightning, but his primary systems were fully functional. Jarvis, start downloading everything from the Senate building's tactical network. Security feeds, communication logs, anything that tells us who knew we'd be here and when. Already in progress, sir. I've also taken the liberty of placing surveillance countermeasures throughout our quarters. If Count Dooku's forces manage to breach our security, I want to know how. The fight between Anakin and Dooku was escalating into something beyond normal combat. The Jedi Knight was pressing hard, his attacks carrying raw power that forced Dooku to give ground. But the Sith Lord's technique was superior, his centuries of experience evident in how he turned Anakin's aggression against him. With a casual flick of his wrist, Dooku sent a telekinetic pulse that hurled Anakin backward into a Durasteel support column, hard enough to dent it. "Still so much anger in you, young Skywalker," Dooku observed. "Still so much fear. The dark side calls to you, whether you admit it or not." Anakin surged back to his feet, and Tony caught something concerning in the young Jedi's expression. Not just anger, but fury barely contained. His next assault was faster, more aggressive, abandoning defensive form entirely in favor of overwhelming offense. It was effective but reckless, the kind of fighting that won battles but got you killed eventually. Obi-Wan clearly thought the same thing. "Anakin, control yourself. Don't let him bait you." But Dooku was already disengaging, his aristocratic features arranged in satisfaction as if Anakin's loss of control had confirmed something important. "Until next time, Kenobi, Skywalker, and you, dimensional travelers." His gaze settled on Tony and Rhodey with predatory interest. "I'll be watching your progress with great interest. Technology that bypasses the Force entirely could be quite useful. Perhaps we'll meet again under circumstances where I'm not outnumbered." He threw something small toward the platform center, a thermal detonator that Tony's sensors immediately classified as catastrophically powerful. The Jedi moved instantly, Obi-Wan's force push sending the device hurtling skyward, where it detonated with enough force to shatter windows across 3 building levels. In the chaos of the explosion, Dooku simply vanished, his force-enhanced leap carrying him into Coruscant's vertical cityscape where tracking him became impossible. The platform fell into tense silence, broken only by the crackling of damaged electronics and the distant wail of emergency speeders. Anakin stood with his lightsaber still ignited, his breathing heavy, his knuckles white around the weapon's hilt. Ahsoka moved to his side cautiously, as if approaching something dangerous that might lash out. "Master, are you—" "I'm fine, Snip." Anakin's voice was clipped, controlled too tightly. He deactivated his lightsaber and turned to Tony and Rhodey, his expression shifting to concern. "Are you both all right? That lightsaber strike looks serious." Tony's faceplate retracted, and he gestured to his chest plate where nanomachines were still working to repair the damage. "Nothing that can't be fixed, though I'll admit, your Sith Lord friend is significantly more dangerous than I anticipated. That telekinetic barrier of his... It's called force deflection," Obi-Wan explained, his own lightsaber now deactivated. "Dooku is a master of Form 2 lightsaber combat and a powerful Force user. He was once a Jedi, one of our greatest before he fell to the dark side." His expression carried old grief. "He was my master's master. Family, in a way." Rhodey had holstered his weapons, but his armor remained in combat-ready mode. He knew exactly where to find us. The timing, the target, everything was too precise to be coincidence. Someone fed him intelligence. Separatist spies in the Senate, Ahsoka suggested. Master Yoda warned us about infiltration. They could have been tracking you since you arrived. But Tony's genius brain was putting together pieces that created a disturbing picture. The attack came right after their meeting with Yoda, right after they'd started asking questions about who might benefit from the war. Dooku's primary objective wasn't killing them, it was obtaining their technology, and he'd retreated the moment Jedi reinforcements arrived, suggesting this was a probe rather than a serious acquisition attempt. Someone was testing them, measuring their capabilities, seeing how they'd respond under pressure and who they'd align with when forced to choose. Jarvis, analysis complete on those network downloads. Indeed, sir. The security breach originated from a terminal in the Senate Intelligence Division, accessed using credentials that belong to a senator who's been dead for 3 months. The attack was planned meticulously, with the commando droids infiltrating through maintenance tunnels that were conveniently left unguarded due to a scheduling error that appeared in the system 2 days ago. So someone inside the Republic's government structure is working with Dooku, Tony concluded. Or someone wants us to think that. Obi-Wan's expression grew grim. The war has created opportunities for corruption and infiltration. Trust is becoming a scarce commodity in the Senate. He looked at Tony and Rhodey with measuring eyes. You fought well. Your armor's capabilities are extraordinary. Dooku will report back to his separatist leadership about you. Which means you're now actively involved, whether you intended to be or not. We defended ourselves, Rhodey stated flatly. That's not choosing sides. That's survival. In a war, there's often no distinction, Anakin said, his earlier fury now controlled but still visible in the set of his shoulders. Dooku will spin this as you working for the Republic. His propaganda networks will paint you as Republic superweapons. The Separatists will hunt you specifically now. Tony's arc reactor pulsed in his chest, and he looked out at Coruscant's endless sprawl where somewhere in those trillion souls, people were making moves on a galactic chessboard. Dooku had attacked them not just for their technology, but to force them into play, to make them commit to a side whether they wanted to or not. It was exactly the kind of manipulation Tony hated, because it was exactly the kind of manipulation that worked. Then I guess we'd better figure out whose game we're actually playing in, Tony said quietly. Because something tells me this war is a lot more complicated than Republic versus Separatists. The holographic tactical display in the Jedi Temple Strategy Center painted the outer rim in shades of red and blue that told a story of galactic hemorrhaging. Each red marker represented a Separatist-controlled system, each blue a Republic stronghold, and the contested zones flickered purple like bruises spreading across the galaxy's skin. Tony stood before the display with his arms crossed, his genius brain processing strategic patterns, while Jarvis catalogued every data point into comprehensive analytical models. This is the Battle of Ryloth, Anakin explained, manipulating the hologram to zoom in on a system dominated by a green and brown planet. Twi'lek homeworld, population of 2 billion. The Separatists blockaded it 3 weeks ago, and their ground forces are systematically enslaving the population. We've lost 4 Republic cruisers trying to break through their fleet, and our ground assault stalled when General Grievous deployed his tactical droids. Tony's eyes tracked the fleet positions, calculating firing arcs, hyperspace exit vectors, and defensive formations. Your Republic cruisers are engaging from predictable angles. The Separatist command ship, that's their flagship, the big wedge-shaped monster, it's positioned to maximize its broadside coverage while minimizing exposure to concentrated fire. Whoever's commanding that blockade knows capital ship warfare. General Grievous, Obi-Wan said from his position beside the hologram, his tone carrying the weight of bitter experience. A cyborg with no force sensitivity, but tactical brilliance and zero regard for civilian casualties. He's killed more Jedi than any other Separatist commander. His reputation alone causes systems to surrender rather than face him. Rhodey studied the tactical display with his colonel's eye for military doctrine. Your assault pattern is too conventional. You're treating this like a siege when you should be treating it like a rescue operation. Those enslaved Twi'leks are your strategic objective, not the Separatist fleet. Mace Windu, who'd been observing silently from the chamber's periphery, stepped forward with measured interest. Explain. You're engaging their strength, heavy capital ships in a defensive formation. Rhodey continued, his hands gesturing to illustrate tactical movements. That's what they want. They're baiting you into a war of attrition where their numerical advantage in droid fighters bleeds your clone pilots dry. Instead, you need to hit their weakness, supply lines and command infrastructure. That blockade fleet requires constant resupply of fuel, ammunition, and parts. Cut their logistics, and they'll have to reposition, which breaks their defensive formation and creates openings. Ahsoka leaned in with barely contained excitement. How do we cut their supply lines if we can't break through the blockade? Tony's smile was sharp and predatory. Who said anything about breaking through? Jarvis, overlay Separatist supply routes based on standard military logistics patterns. The holographic display shifted, new lines appearing that traced probable hyperspace routes from Separatist manufacturing centers to the Ryloth blockade. 3 primary corridors emerged, each representing billions of credits in war material flowing to sustain Grievous's fleet. There, Tony pointed to a junction system where 2 supply routes converged. That's your choke point. Hit it with a fast strike force. Nothing heavy that would trigger a major fleet response. Destroy their supply depot, mine the hyperspace lanes, and suddenly Grievous has a choice. Maintain the blockade and watch his fleet run out of fuel, or break formation to secure his logistics. Either way, you get your opening. Obi-Wan stroked his beard thoughtfully, his strategic mind clearly working through the implications. A commando operation rather than a fleet engagement. Risky, but potentially effective. The question becomes, who leads such a strike force? We'd need exceptional pilots, ground troops capable of rapid assault, and someone who can adapt when inevitably the plan encounters reality. I volunteer, Anakin said immediately, his enthusiasm for action barely contained. Give me a squadron of fighters and a battalion of the 501st. We can hit that supply depot and be out before the Separatists know what happened. Mace Windu's expression carried skepticism that bordered on paternal concern. Skywalker, your tactical instincts are sound, but your tendency toward improvisation has cost us resources before. This operation requires precision, not heroics. Then let me go with him, Tony interjected, surprising everyone in the chamber, including himself. He caught Rhodey's warning glance, but continued anyway. Look, You've got a coordination problem. Your clone troopers are excellent soldiers, but they're trained for conventional warfare. Anakin's got the force and the instincts, but sometimes rushes into situations without proper reconnaissance. I've got sensors that can detect threats before they materialize, and tactical algorithms that can coordinate complex operations in real time. You just agreed to be consultants, not frontline combatants, Obi-Wan reminded him with diplomatic caution. Consulting means nothing if we're giving advice without understanding your actual combat conditions. Rhodey countered, his military pragmatism cutting through the philosophical debate. Tony's right. We need field experience to give you useful tactical insights. And if we're going to be stuck in this galaxy, we should probably understand how wars are actually fought here before someone like Dooku catches us unprepared again. Yoda, who'd been silent throughout the discussion, finally spoke from his seat overlooking the strategic display. Test them in battle, this would. See how your technology fares against separatist forces. But dangerous this is. Lose you, we cannot. Valuable you are, not just for your armor, but for your perspective. Master Yoda's right, Mace Windu said, his stern expression softening slightly. However, the operation's strategic value outweighs the risk. If successful, we could break the Ryloth blockade and save 2 billion lives. That's worth deploying unconventional assets. His gaze settled on Tony and Rhodey with measuring intensity. But understand this. War is not a laboratory. Battle doesn't care how advanced your technology is. The Force has shown me visions of this conflict, and they're clouded with darkness. Something is moving beneath the surface of this war that even the Council cannot fully perceive. Tony's arc reactor pulsed in his chest, and he felt that familiar rush of adrenaline that came before stepping into the unknown. Darkness, manipulation, hidden agendas. Sounds like Tuesday for us. When do we leave? Immediately, Anakin said with barely suppressed excitement. I'll assemble my squadron and brief the 501st. Master Windu, with your permission. The Jedi Master nodded slowly, though concern remained etched in his features. Granted. But Skywalker, this is a precision strike, not a heroic assault. Get in, destroy the depot, get out. No improvisation, no unnecessary risks. Am I clear? Crystal, Master. As the briefing dissolved into tactical planning, Obi-Wan pulled Tony aside with the practiced subtlety of a diplomat who'd survived countless political minefields. Mr. Stark, a word of caution. Anakin is one of the most gifted Jedi I've ever trained, but he carries burdens that sometimes cloud his judgment. He's lost people, friends, mentors, soldiers under his command. Those losses drive him to take risks that endanger himself and others. If you're flying with him, watch for moments when his tactical brilliance gives way to emotional reaction. Tony recognized the concern in Obi-Wan's voice. It was the same tone Rhodey used when warning him about self-destructive tendencies. You're worried he'll do something stupid trying to save everyone. I'm worried he'll sacrifice himself trying to be the hero everyone expects him to be, Obi-Wan corrected quietly. The Jedi Council sees him as the chosen one, prophesied to bring balance to the Force. That's a heavy burden for anyone, especially someone as young as Anakin. He tries to live up to impossible expectations while wrestling with attachments the Jedi Code forbids. It's a recipe for tragedy if someone doesn't help him find balance. You want me to be his impulse control? Tony asked incredulously. Have you met me? I'm the guy who flies nuclear missiles through dimensional portals and picks fights with gods. I'm nobody's role model for restraint. Perhaps, Obi-Wan said with a slight smile, but you've survived making dangerous choices by learning from them. Anakin hasn't learned that lesson yet. Maybe someone who understands reckless brilliance can teach him when to pull back before the brilliance becomes fatal. Before Tony could respond, Anakin called out across the strategy center. "Stark, Rhodes, we're wheels up in 30 minutes. Hope your armor can handle space combat because we're going in hot and leaving smoking." Rhodey joined Tony, his helmet retracting to reveal a knowing smirk. "You realize we just volunteered for a military operation in a galaxy we barely understand. Fighting enemies with technology we haven't fully analyzed, alongside a Jedi who apparently has impulse control issues?" "I know. Great plan, right?" "Tony, this is insane even by your standards." "That's how you know it'll work." Tony's genius brain was already running through combat scenarios, calculating optimal engagement ranges for his repulsors against separatist shields, analyzing the tactical advantages of fighting alongside Force users, and determining how to coordinate War Machine's heavy weapons with Republic starfighter formations. Besides, Jarvis has been building predictive models of separatist tactics based on downloaded battle reports. We're not going in blind. "Sir," Jarvis interjected through their internal comms, "I should note that separatist tactical droids possess adaptive algorithms that learn from enemy behavior. They will analyze your combat patterns and develop countermeasures. The element of surprise will be temporary. Then we make every shot count while they're still figuring us out." Tony's arc reactor glowed brighter as his armor's systems began pre-combat diagnostics. "Rhodey, configure your payload for anti-ship operations. If we're hitting a supply depot, there'll be cargo freighters and escort craft that need disabling. I'll handle point defense and fast movers." "Already on it. Though I'm going on record saying this is a terrible idea." "Your objection is noted and ignored." 30 minutes later, Tony found himself in the hangar bay of a Republic Venator-class Star Destroyer, surrounded by clone troopers with blue markings on their armor who moved with the precise efficiency of soldiers who'd fought together countless times. The 501st Legion, Anakin's personal battalion, veterans of dozens of campaigns, each one genetically identical, but carrying themselves with subtle individual variations that suggested personality beneath the uniform genetics. Captain Rex, Anakin introduced a clone trooper whose armor bore distinctive blue markings and modifications that spoke of rank and experience. "This is Tony Stark and James Rhodes, our new consultants. They'll be providing air support during the operation." Captain Rex's helmet tilted slightly as he assessed the two armored humans, his posture relaxed but ready. "Sir, with respect, I've seen the combat footage from the Senate building. Your armor is impressive, but this operation requires coordination with Republic forces. Can you integrate with our tactical network?" "Jarvis, show them." The AI immediately interfaced with the 501st's command frequency, and every clone trooper's SHUD suddenly displayed comprehensive tactical overlays, optimal firing positions, enemy probable locations based on predictive modeling, coordinated movement patterns, and real-time threat assessment that made their standard tactical displays look like cave paintings. Rex's helmet turned toward Tony with what might have been respect. "That's significantly better than our standard combat interface. Sir, if you could provide this tactical support to the entire battalion. Already done, Jarvis confirmed. I've established encrypted communication with all 501st personnel and integrated my tactical algorithms with your command structure. Captain Rex, you'll have real-time battlefield analysis and coordinated fire support throughout the operation. I think I'm in love with your AI, Rex said, and several nearby clone troopers chuckled, a sound that reminded Tony these weren't just identical soldiers, but individuals with personalities and humor. Ahsoka bounded up with her characteristic youthful energy, her dual lightsabers secured at her belt. Master Skywalker says I'm flying escort with you. Try to keep up. Kid, I break the sound barrier before breakfast. You try to keep up. The strike force assembled with military precision. 6 Republic starfighters forming the fighter screen, Tony and Rhodey as heavy assault elements, Anakin's modified Jedi interceptor taking point, and 3 LAAT gunships carrying the 501st ground troops. The Venator's hangar bay depressurized as the magnetic shield flickered, and beyond stretched the infinite dark of space painted with distant stars. All units, this is Skywalker. Anakin's voice came through the comm system with command authority. Mission parameters are simple. Jump to the B2 system, destroy the Separatist supply depot, and jump out before their response fleet arrives. Estimated time on target, 12 minutes. No heroics, no deviations. Execute the plan and everyone goes home. May the Force be with us. The strike force launched into the black, and Tony felt his armor's systems sing with readiness. Beside him, Rhodey's war machine suit bristled with enough weaponry to level a city block. Behind them, clone troopers checked their weapons with the calm efficiency of professionals about to do violence in service of their republic. And somewhere in hyperspace between stars, they were hurtling toward a battle that would test everything Tony had built, everything he believed about warfare and technology, and force him to make choices that would ripple across an entire galaxy. Jarvis, start recording everything. If we survive this, I want data on Separatist combat doctrine, weapon effectiveness, and tactical coordination. Optimistic, sir. I appreciate your confidence that we'll survive to analyze the data. I didn't build an arc reactor in a cave just to die in some random supply depot raid. Let's show this galaxy what Earth engineering can do. The hyperspace exit coordinates locked in, and reality stretched around them as they prepared to drop into a combat zone 42,000 light-years from home. The B2 system materialized around them with the violence of reality reasserting itself after the impossible physics of hyperspace. Tony's sensors immediately screamed warnings as his HUD populated with hostile contacts. The Separatist supply depot was a massive orbital platform bristling with defensive turrets surrounded by 6 cargo freighters in various stages of loading and protected by a defensive screen of 30 vulture droids that reacted to their arrival with mechanical precision. Contact. Anakin's voice cut through the comm channels with sharp intensity. All fighters engage the droid screen. Stark, Rhodes, you're on station, defense suppression. Rex, get your gunships to the depot's docking bay. We need those charges planted before their reinforcements arrive. Tony's tactical systems painted the battlefield in layers of threat assessment and opportunity. The vulture droids were swarming in coordinated attack patterns that Jarvis immediately classified as sophisticated pack hunting behavior. The depot's defensive turrets tracked their approach with targeting solutions that suggested quantum computing-level processing. And somewhere beyond sensor range, he knew Separatist reinforcements were calculating jump coordinates. Rhodey, pattern Delta 4. I'm breaking their formation. You're the hammer. Copy that. Jarvis, feed me targeting priority on those turrets. Tony accelerated to Mach 3 in 3 seconds. His repulsors screaming as he tore through the droid fighter screen like a meteor through atmosphere. Vulture droids scattered, their mechanical brains recalculating threat assessments as this unknown contact moved faster than any starfighter in their databases. Tony's hands danced through targeting solutions, his mind processing tactical data faster than most computers. 6 wrist missiles launched simultaneously, each one tracking a separate Vulture droid with adaptive guidance systems that Jarvis had optimized based on downloaded Separatist schematics. 4 missiles found their targets, detonating with precision that turned sleek fighters into expanding clouds of debris. 2 were intercepted by defensive fire from nearby droids, but the distraction created exactly the opening war machine needed. Rhodey came in, low and fast. His shoulder-mounted minigun spooling up to firing speed that turned air into a wall of depleted uranium. His targeting was surgical, not the droid fighters, but the depot's turret emplacements, each burst of fire calculated to disable rather than destroy, creating blind spots in the station's defensive coverage. Turrets 3, 7, and 12 offline, Jarvis reported with satisfaction. Defensive coverage reduced by 42%. Captain Rex, you have a clear approach vector to Docking Bay Alpha. The LAAT gunships screamed through the gap that Rhodey had carved in the station's defenses, their door gunners laying down suppressing fire as clone troopers prepared for rapid deployment. Tony watched the tactical display update in real time as Rex's forces breached the docking bay with a kind of coordinated efficiency that spoke to years of combat experience compressed into accelerated growth cycles. "We're in," Rex's voice came through, clipped and professional. "Encountering battle droid resistance. Standard B1 units, nothing we can't handle. Proceeding to primary reactor." But Tony's sensors were detecting something that made his tactical instincts scream warnings. "Anakin, we've got a problem. I'm reading energy signatures consistent with a hyperspace jump imminent. Multiple contacts, big ones." "How long?" Anakin's Jedi interceptor wove through Vulture droid formations with force-enhanced precision, his starfighter's cannons punching holes through droid armor with each perfectly placed shot. 2 minutes, maybe less. "Jarvis, what are we looking at?" "Analyzing gravimetric distortions now, sir. Signature profiles match." The AI paused, which was never a good sign. "Sir, that's a Separatist Providence-class dreadnought supported by 4 Munificent-class frigates. Combined firepower sufficient to destroy our entire strike force in approximately 90 seconds of sustained engagement." Rhodey's war machine suit pulled alongside Tony's position, his weapons tracking the remaining Vulture droids while his tactical brain processed their deteriorating situation. "Tony, we need to abort. Rex hasn't planted the charges yet, and we can't fight a dreadnought with 6 starfighters and 2 suits of armor." "Rex, status?" Tony demanded. 30 seconds to reactor room. We've hit heavier resistance. Droidicas and super battle droids. They were expecting us. That made Tony's danger sense spike harder. The Separatists had known they were coming, or at least had prepared for the possibility of a Republic strike on this depot, which meant someone had either predicted their tactical choice or leaked their operational plans. Neither possibility was comforting. "Master Skywalker," Ahsoka's voice cut through the chaos, her starfighter executing a barrel roll that put her on the tail of 3 vulture droids. "I sense something wrong through the Force, like we're flying into a trap." "I sense it too, Snips," Anakin admitted, and Tony heard genuine concern beneath the Jedi's confidence. "But we can't leave Rex and the 501st in there. We finish the mission." Tony's genius brain was already calculating alternatives, running through tactical scenarios at quantum processing speeds. Aborting meant the blockade at Ryloth continued. 2 billion Twi'leks remained enslaved, and the Separatists retained their strategic advantage. Staying meant fighting a dreadnought with insufficient forces, risking not just their lives, but the entire 501st Legion. There had to be a third option, something his engineering mind could exploit that pure military doctrine couldn't see. "Jarvis, full structural analysis of that supply depot. I need weaknesses." "Sir, the station's primary reactor is a fusion core operating at 94% capacity to power the defensive systems and cargo handling equipment. If compromised, the resulting detonation would have a yield equivalent to how big?" "Sufficient to destroy everything within a 50-kilometer radius, sir." "Including us, if we're not at minimum safe distance." "That's our play." Tony switched to the battalion command frequency. "Rex, change your plans. Don't just plant charges on the reactor. I need you to rig it for catastrophic overload. Maximum yield, shortest possible timer." There was a pause. Then Rex's voice came back professional but questioning. "Sir, that will destroy the entire depot and everything around it. The cargo freighters, the droid fighters, everything, including us if we're still in the blast radius. That's the idea. We turn this depot into the galaxy's biggest bomb and use it to take out that incoming dreadnought. They're jumping in expecting a small strike force they can easily destroy. Instead, they arrive just in time to get caught in an explosion that'll send them back to whatever factory built them." "That's insane," Rhodey said, but his tone carried the familiar edge that meant he was already calculating how to make insanity work. "The timing would have to be perfect. We'd need to know exactly when they're exiting hyperspace, exactly when the reactor goes critical, and we'd have maybe 10 seconds to clear the blast radius. Jarvis can calculate hyperspace exit vectors to within 0.03 seconds of accuracy. Rex can set the charges with military precision, and our armor can outrun the blast wave if we're already moving at maximum velocity when detonation occurs." Tony's mind was 3 steps ahead, seeing the tactical chessboard and finding the move that turned their disadvantage into devastating victory. "Anakin, can your Force precognition give us any warning before they drop out of hyperspace?" "Maybe. The Force isn't always clear, but I'll sense the danger intensifying right before they arrive." The young Jedi's voice carried the kind of reckless confidence Tony recognized from his own mirror. "You're talking about turning their reinforcement into an ambush. I like it." Mace Windu's voice cut through the command channel with stern authority. "Skywalker, this plan has too many variables. You're gambling with the lives of the entire 501st Legion based on calculations and Force sensitivity that may not be accurate enough." "With respect, Master Windu," Tony interjected, This war is a gamble anyway. You're fighting an enemy with superior numbers, superior production capacity, and commanders who don't care about casualties because their soldiers are expendable droids. The only way to win is by being smarter, faster, and willing to make moves they can't predict. This is that move. The silence that followed lasted exactly 3 seconds, an eternity in combat time. Then Yoda's ancient voice crackled through, carrying weight that transcended rank. Trust in their plan, we must. Unorthodox it is, but trapped by orthodox thinking, we have been. Proceed, Skywalker. May the Force guide you all. You heard him, Anakin said, and Tony could hear the grin in his voice. Rex, rig that reactor for maximum bang. Everyone else, as soon as those charges are set, we burn for the edge of the blast radius and pray we're fast enough. The next 90 seconds were organized chaos, choreographed to military precision. Rex's voice called out updates as his demolition experts rewired the depot's fusion reactor, bypassing safety protocols and introducing cascade failures that would turn controlled fusion into uncontrolled detonation. Tony and Rhodey maintained defensive coverage, their weapons carving through the remaining Vulture droids with clinical efficiency, while their sensors tracked the incoming hyperspace signatures growing stronger. Charges set, Rex announced. Timer is active. We have 4 minutes from my mark. All gunships, extract now, Anakin ordered. Full burn, don't wait for formation. Jarvis, I need that Dreadnought's exit vector and timing. Calculating now, the AI responded. Gravimetric distortions indicate hyperspace exit in 3 minutes, 47 seconds. Emergence coordinates place them directly between us, and optimal escape trajectory. They're positioning to cut off our retreat. Tony's tactical brain immediately saw the problem. The Separatists weren't just responding to their attack. They were executing a counter-ambush, jumping in at vectors that would trap the Republic's strike force between the exploding depot and their overwhelming firepower. It was a brilliant tactical move that would have worked perfectly against conventional doctrine. But Tony Stark had never been conventional. New plan. We don't run from the blast. We use it. Jarvis, calculate a trajectory that puts us riding the edge of the explosion's shockwave, using the expanding plasma as cover. The Dreadnought's sensors will be overwhelmed by the detonation's energy signature. We slip out in the chaos while they're blind. Sir, that strategy has a 73% probability of catastrophic armor failure from thermal and kinetic stress. So we've got a 73% chance of dying versus a 100% chance if we try to outrun both the blast and the Dreadnought's weapons. I'll take those odds. You're genuinely insane, Rhodey said, but his war machine suit was already moving into position beside Tony. When we get home, I'm recommending a full psychological evaluation. Get in line behind Pepper. The Alayat gunships cleared the depot's docking bay with the 501st Legion secured inside, their engines screaming as they burned away from Ground Zero. Anakin's fighter group formed defensive escort, and Tony could feel the tension ratcheting higher as every second brought them closer to either brilliant victory or spectacular death. 1 minute to hyperspace exit, Jarvis announced. 30 seconds to detonation. All units should be at maximum velocity in 15 seconds. Tony's repulsors burned at a maximum output, his armor's power systems redirecting everything non-essential to speed and structural integrity. Beside him, Rhodey's heavier armor struggled slightly with acceleration, but compensated with raw thrust that turned fuel into velocity with brutal efficiency. Behind them, the clone gunships pushed their engines past recommended limits. The Republic star fighters wove protective patterns around their slower charges. "I sense them," Anakin said suddenly. "The dreadnought. They're about to—" Reality tore open as the Providence-class dreadnought and its escort frigates dropped out of hyperspace in a formation designed to cage their prey. The massive warship's weapons immediately began tracking solutions, its commander clearly confident this would be a simple execution of a cornered Republic force. Then the supply depot's reactor went critical. The fusion core's magnetic containment collapsed in a cascading failure that turned controlled nuclear fusion into an expanding sphere of star-hot plasma. The explosion was magnificent and terrible. A miniature sun birthed in the void that consumed the depot, the cargo freighters, and every vulture droid that hadn't burned enough distance. The shockwave expanded at relativistic speeds, carrying enough kinetic energy to shatter planets. Tony and Rhodey hit the edge of the blast wave at precisely calculated angles, their armor's shields absorbing punishment that would have vaporized lesser machines. The plasma washed over them like being inside a nuclear fireball, their sensors screaming overload warnings while Jarvis fought to maintain system stability. Tony's HUD flickered, his power reserves dropped to 42%, and his armor's surface temperature spiked to levels that would have cooked him without the arc reactor's heat dispersal systems. But they were alive. And more importantly, they were invisible. The dreadnought's sensors were completely overwhelmed by the explosion's electromagnetic pulse and thermal radiation. For precious seconds, the Separatist flagship was blind, its tactical systems rebooting while its commander tried to understand why his ambush had turned into an inferno. "All units, punch through while they're blind." Anakin's command cut through the static. "Jump coordinates locked. Everyone make the jump to hyperspace on my mark." The Republic strike force screamed through the chaos, using the explosion they'd created as both weapon and escape route. Tony's sensors cleared enough to catch a glimpse of the dreadnought emerging from the plasma cloud with visible damage. Its forward shields had collapsed, two of its escort frigates were dead in space, and its hull plating showed scoring from the blast wave they'd been caught in. "Mark!" Stars stretched into lines as hyperspace swallowed them. And Tony felt his armor's systems finally begin cooling down from temperatures that had pushed every component to its absolute limits. His arc reactor pulsed steady in his chest, and Jarvis immediately began damage assessment while maintaining tactical analysis. "Mission successful," Rex reported, his professional tone unable to completely hide satisfaction. "Depot destroyed, supply lines disrupted, and we bloodied a Separatist dreadnought in the process. No casualties from the 501st. That was the single craziest tactical maneuver I've ever participated in," one of the Republic pilots said over the comm channel. "And I flew with General Skywalker at Christophsis." "Welcome to Stark-style warfare," Tony said, his faceplate retracting to reveal a grin that mixed adrenaline and satisfaction. "Where we turn physics into a weapon and make the enemy regret showing up." But as they rode hyperspace back to Coruscant, Tony's genius brain was processing something more concerning than the battle's tactical success. The Separatists had positioned their ambush perfectly, as if they'd known not just that an attack was coming, but the specific vector and timing of the Republic's strike force. That level of intelligence required either exceptional predictive analysis or actual leaked operational data. Someone had known their plans. Someone had told the Separatists where to position their response fleet. And Tony was beginning to suspect that whoever was orchestrating this war from the shadows had just made their first mistake, underestimating what two engineers from Earth could accomplish when the galaxy underestimated them. The Jedi Council chamber had transformed from a place of serene contemplation into something resembling a command center during crisis mode. Holographic displays flickered between star charts showing the collapsing Ryloth blockade, intelligence reports scrolling past in multiple languages, and the grim faces of Jedi Masters processing the implications of what Tony and Rhodey had just revealed. The evidence Jarvis had compiled was damning. Communication intercepts, encrypted data packets, financial transactions that connected directly back to Coruscant's highest levels of government. Impossible, Senator Bail Organa said, his diplomatic composure cracking under the weight of Tony's presentation. The Alderaanian senator had been called to this emergency session along with a handful of other trusted Republic officials. You're suggesting that Supreme Chancellor Palpatine himself is leaking operational intelligence to the Separatists? I'm not suggesting anything, Tony corrected, his holographic interface displaying another layer of evidence. Jarvis traced the communication pathway that tipped off the Separatists about our B-2 raid. It originated from a terminal in the Chancellor's executive office, transmitted through 6 proxy servers, and ended up in Count Dooku's command network approximately 40 minutes before we launched. That's not coincidence. That's coordinated intelligence sharing. Mace Windu's expression was carved from stone, his hands gripping the arms of his council seat with barely contained intensity. You're accusing the Supreme Chancellor of treason, of collaborating with the enemy he's supposedly fighting. Do you understand the magnitude of what you're claiming? I understand it's treason, Rhodey said flatly, his military background lending credibility to his assessment. I also understand that everything about this war has been too convenient, the clone army appearing exactly when needed, the Separatist crisis escalating at precisely the right moments to grant Palpatine emergency powers. Every major battle creating circumstances that strengthen his political position. Sir, I've seen authoritarian takeovers before. This follows the playbook exactly. Obi-Wan stood near the chamber's transparisteel windows, looking out at Coruscant's endless cityscape with troubled eyes. The evidence is compelling but circumstantial. Palpatine is a skilled politician who's survived decades of Senate intrigue. If he truly were orchestrating both sides of this conflict, he'd have to be extraordinarily careful to avoid exactly this kind of suspicion. Unless he's gotten so confident that he's stopped being careful, Tony countered. Or unless he wants us to find this evidence because he's playing a game we still don't fully understand. Yoda's ears drooped with an expression of profound sadness. Clouded, the Force has become around the Chancellor. Sensed this, the Council has, but attributed it to the stress of war leadership. Now, question this we must. If Darth Sidious, the Sith Lord, orchestrating the Separatists, and Supreme Chancellor Palpatine are one and the same. His ancient eyes closed briefly. Then lost, the Republic already is. manipulated from within, destroyed by the very man elected to save it. You're saying Palpatine is a Sith Lord? Ahsoka's voice carried disbelief mixed with growing horror. But he's a politician. He's not a warrior. He doesn't carry a lightsaber or use the Force in public. The Sith have survived for a millennium by hiding in plain sight, Mace Windu said grimly. Operating in the shadows, manipulating events, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. If Palpatine is indeed Darth Sidious, then he's executed the most successful deception in galactic history. He's convinced the Republic to grant him absolute power, while simultaneously creating the crisis that justifies that power. It's brilliant and terrifying. Tony's arc reactor pulsed as his mind worked through the political chess game they'd uncovered. The question is, what's his endgame? He's got emergency powers, he controls the clone army, and he's positioned himself as indispensable to the Republic's survival. What's the final move? Consolidation, Senator Organa said quietly, his diplomatic mind seeing the pattern. He'll manufacture one final crisis, something so catastrophic that the Senate will beg him to assume permanent authority. Then he'll transform the Republic into an empire with himself as emperor, and no one will oppose him because they'll believe it's necessary for survival. The chamber fell into heavy silence as everyone processed the nightmare scenario. A Sith Lord had infiltrated the highest level of Republic government, manipulated an entire galaxy into war, and positioned himself to seize absolute power through democratic means. It was brilliant, terrifying, and almost unstoppable at this stage. "So we expose him," Anakin said, his hand moving to his lightsaber instinctively. "Bring this evidence to the Senate, show them what Palpatine really is, and let the Republic deal with him according to law." "And if we're wrong?" Obi-Wan challenged gently. "If this evidence is fabricated by separatist intelligence to destabilize the Republic by destroying faith in our leadership, if we accuse the Chancellor of treason without absolute proof, we'll create exactly the constitutional crisis that could shatter what remains of galactic unity." "But if we're right and do nothing," Rhodey countered, "we're complicit in whatever authoritarian nightmare he's building." Tony stood and began pacing, his engineer's brain approaching this like any complex problem requiring innovative solutions. "We need more than circumstantial evidence. We need Palpatine to reveal himself in a way that's undeniable. Catch him actively using the Force, or communicating directly with Dooku as Darth Sidious, or executing some aspect of his plan that proves his treachery beyond any doubt. You're proposing we set a trap for a Sith Lord," Mace Windu said, his tone suggesting he was evaluating whether Tony was brilliant or suicidal. "A being who's manipulated galactic politics for decades, who commands the dark side of the Force, and who has contingency plans we can't even imagine. That's your strategy? I'm proposing we use what he doesn't expect against him." Tony's smile was sharp and dangerous. "Palpatine has spent years manipulating Force-sensitive Jedi, who he can read, predict, and counter through the dark side. But Rhodey and I don't register in the Force at all. We're invisible to his primary intelligence-gathering method. That makes us the perfect operatives to gather evidence without him sensing our intent." Yoda's ears perked up with interest. "Wisdom in this, there is. Blind spots in the Force, you are. Sense your approach, he cannot. Predict your actions, he cannot. Use this advantage, we must. But carefully, Obi-Wan added. If Palpatine is Darth Sidious, he's survived this long by being paranoid and prepared. The moment he suspects we're investigating him, he'll accelerate his plans or eliminate threats preemptively. We'd need to act with absolute subtlety. I'm great at subtle, Tony said, ignoring Rhodey's snort of disbelief. Jarvis, start building a surveillance network focused on Palpatine's movements, communications, and known associates. I want to know everyone he talks to, everywhere he goes, and every decision he makes. Cross-reference everything with separatist activity and look for coordination patterns. Already in progress, sir, though I should note that the Chancellor's personal security includes sophisticated counter-surveillance technology. I'll need time to develop penetration strategies that won't trigger alerts. Anakin had been quiet throughout the exchange, his expression troubled in ways that went beyond tactical concerns. Master Yoda, the Chancellor has been my friend. He's advised me, trusted me with sensitive missions, treated me like... He paused, struggling with the words. If he's been manipulating me this whole time, using me as part of his plan, then he chose his target well. Obi-Wan said gently, placing a hand on his former Padawan's shoulder. You're powerful, talented, and frustrated with the Council's restrictions. You're exactly the kind of Jedi a Sith Lord would cultivate as a potential apprentice or tool. But knowing his game means you can refuse to play it. The young Jedi's hands clenched into fists, and Tony saw something dangerous flickering in his expression. Not just anger, but betrayal, mixing with power in ways that made his tactical instincts scream warnings. This was the moment Obi-Wan had warned him about, when Anakin's emotional reactions could override his tactical brilliance. Skywalker, Tony said, his voice cutting through the spiral of emotion he could see building. I've been betrayed by people I trusted. Obadiah Stane, my father's partner, my mentor, tried to kill me and steal my company. I know what it feels like when someone you believed in turns out to be your enemy. The rage, the desire to strike back immediately, to make them pay for the betrayal. Anakin's blue eyes locked onto Tony's, desperate for understanding. How did you deal with it? I built something better than revenge. I built a legacy that proved he was wrong about me, wrong about everything. And when I finally faced him, I won because I was fighting for something more important than my anger. Tony's arc reactor glowed steady in his chest. If Palpatine is Darth Sidious, the worst thing you can do is let your anger make you predictable. The dark side feeds on rage and fear. Don't give him what he wants. Mace Windu was watching this exchange with intense scrutiny, clearly evaluating whether Tony's influence on Anakin was positive or dangerous. Mr. Stark is correct. We must proceed with discipline and patience. Rushing to confront Palpatine without undeniable proof would be catastrophic. Then we gather proof, Senator Organa said decisively, but quietly, carefully, and through channels he can't monitor. If the Chancellor is orchestrating this war, then stopping him stops the conflict and saves billions of lives. That's worth any risk. The emergency session dissolved into tactical planning as the group divided responsibilities. Obi-Wan would continue diplomatic efforts while watching for any signs of Palpatine's deception. Mace Windu would coordinate with the Council to subtly investigate the Chancellor's actions without triggering suspicion. Senator Organa would build a coalition of trusted senators, prepared to act when evidence became concrete. and Tony and Rhodey would do what they did best, use technology to uncover secrets that Force sensitivity couldn't detect. As the chamber cleared, Anakin caught Tony in the corridor outside, his expression carrying complicated emotions. "Thank you for understanding. The Council doesn't. They want me to suppress my feelings, to pretend I don't care when I care too much, but you get it." "I get it," Tony confirmed. "But Skywalker, listen to me carefully. Your power makes you dangerous. Your anger makes you vulnerable. And if Palpatine really is grooming you as a potential apprentice, he's going to test you, push you toward choices that feel justified in the moment, but lead you down paths you can't come back from. When that happens, remember, you've got people who will fight beside you without expecting you to be perfect. Use that." The young Jedi nodded slowly, then walked away toward the temple's training halls, where Tony suspected he'd spend the next several hours channeling his turmoil into lightsaber practice. Obi-Wan appeared beside Tony with the silent grace of someone trained in stealth, his expression carrying approval mixed with concern. "That was well done, Mr. Stark. Anakin needs people who understand his struggles without judging him for them. But I should warn you, if Palpatine senses that Anakin is slipping from his influence, he'll take action, possibly violent action. Then we'd better move fast." Tony's HUD was already displaying the surveillance network Jarvis was constructing, layers of monitoring systems positioned to track the Supreme Chancellor without his knowledge. Because if there's one thing I've learned from fighting gods and monsters, it's that the moment they realize you're a threat, they stop playing games and start playing for keeps. 3 days later, Jarvis detected something that made every alarm in Tony's genius brain start screaming. A communication from Palpatine's private office, encrypted with Sith-specific algorithms, transmitted directly to a location in the Outer Rim that matched Count Dooku's last known coordinates. The message was brief but damning. "The dimensional travelers are becoming problematic. Eliminate them before they uncover too much. Make it look like a separatist attack." Tony stared at the decrypted message, his arc reactor pulsing with increased intensity as adrenaline flooded his system. They'd found their proof. Palpatine was Darth Sidious, and he'd just ordered their execution. "Jarvis, inform the Council immediately. And Rhodey, suit up. We're about to find out just how serious the Supreme Chancellor is about keeping his secrets." "Sir, I should note that if Palpatine is ordering your elimination, he's likely to use assets we haven't anticipated, possibly including compromised Jedi or clone troopers whose loyalty programming could be exploited. Then we'd better be ready for anything." Tony's armor flowed over his body, nanomachines forming the bleeding-edge suit in seconds. Because the Sith Lord running this galaxy just made his biggest mistake. He threatened the wrong engineers. Through the temple's windows, Coruscant glittered against the void like captured stars, beautiful and oblivious to the conspiracy tearing apart its government from within. Somewhere in that endless city, Darth Sidious was making his move. Tony Stark intended to make sure it was his last. The attack came at midnight Coruscant Standard Time, when the temple's corridors were quietest and most Jedi were deep in meditation or sleep. Tony's sensors detected them first, 12 biosignatures moving with military precision through the temple's lower levels, their approach patterns suggesting special forces training. Jarvis's tactical analysis identified them immediately. Clone commandos, the Republic's elite soldiers, genetically engineered for infiltration and assassination. But these weren't marked with any battalion identification, and their weapons were configured for silent kills. Rhodey, we've got company. 12 hostiles, lower temple levels, moving toward our quarters. War Machine's systems came online instantly, Rhodey's military instincts responding to threat with practiced efficiency. Clone commandos? Tony, those are Republic soldiers. If they're attacking us, then Palpatine's reach extends onto the military command structure. Tony's armor sealed completely, his HUD painting threat vectors and escape routes simultaneously. Jarvis, alert the Council and get Captain Rex. If clones are compromised, we need soldiers we know we can trust. But the commandos weren't alone. Tony's enhanced sensors detected something else moving through the temple. A presence that registered as concentrated darkness in the Force, powerful and predatory. His threat assessment algorithms couldn't classify it properly, but every instinct screaming through his genius brain recognized danger on a fundamental level. Master Stark, a cold voice echoed through their quarters' comm system, the speaker's identity masked by voice distortion technology. Supreme Chancellor Palpatine sends his regards. Your investigation into his affairs has been noted and found treasonous. Surrender peacefully, and your deaths will be quick. Tony's response was to blow out their quarter's external wall with precisely calculated repulsor blasts, creating an exit vector that bypassed the kill box the commandos had been establishing. He and Rhodey launched into Coruscant's night sky as plasma bolts tracked their escape. The shots accurate enough that Jarvis had to calculate evasive maneuvers in real time. They're not trying to capture us, Rhodey observed, his minigun returning fire toward the temple breach point. Those are kill shots from professionals who don't miss. Palpatine's cleaning house. We know too much and we can't be manipulated through the Force. Tony's tactical systems were running threat assessments on multiple levels. The commandos were deadly but conventional. The real danger was whatever Force-sensitive assassin was moving through the temple's shadows. Jarvis, where's that dark side signature? Tracking, sir. The individual is moving with extreme speed toward the council chambers. Energy readings suggest... The AI's tone shifted to alarm. Sir, Master Windu and Master Yoda are in those chambers. I believe the assassin's primary target is the Jedi Council, with your elimination as a secondary objective. Tony's arc reactor flared brighter as his mind processed the horrifying implications. Palpatine wasn't just trying to kill them, he was decapitating the Jedi leadership in one coordinated strike, using their investigation as the trigger to accelerate his endgame. It was brilliant, ruthless, and exactly what Tony would have done if their positions were reversed. We need to get to the council chambers now. Rhodey, maximum burn! They screamed through the temple's architecture like missiles with intent, repulsors and thrusters pushing their armor past safety limits as they raced against an assassin who moved through the Force itself. Tony's sensors painted the council chamber ahead, its doors already blown open, and inside, the scene was carnage given form. 3 Jedi Council members lay dead or dying, their lightsabers extinguished, their bodies bearing wounds from a crimson blade that had struck with surgical precision. Mace Windu fought desperately against a figure cloaked in darkness. his purple lightsaber blazing as it clashed against the assassin's dual crimson blades. Master Yoda stood in the chamber's center, his small form radiating power as he deflected Force lightning with his lightsaber, his ancient face set in grim determination. And standing in the chamber's entrance, his kindly mask finally discarded, was Supreme Chancellor Palpatine. His face was twisted in Sith fury, his yellow eyes burning with dark side corruption, and his hands crackled with power that made Tony's senses scream warnings about electromagnetic distortions that shouldn't exist in nature. Ah, the dimensional travelers. Palpatine's voice had lost all grandfatherly warmth, replaced by the cold satisfaction of a predator cornering prey. How convenient. I can eliminate all my problems simultaneously. The Jedi Council, the troublesome outsiders who see too clearly, and I'll blame it all on a tragic separatist attack. The Senate will grant me permanent emergency powers out of grief and fear. Perfect. The assassin fighting Mace Windu resolved into clarity as Tony's sensors finally got proper readings. It was a Zabrak female with lethal grace, her dual lightsabers moving in patterns that suggested Form 7 mastery. But what made Tony's tactical systems flag her as catastrophically dangerous was the way she fought with complete immunity to Windu's Force attacks, as if the Jedi Master's telekinetic strikes were hitting nothing but empty air. She's trained to resist Force abilities, Jarvis analyzed rapidly, specifically designed to kill Jedi. Sir, her combat effectiveness against Force users exceeds 97th percentile of recorded combatants. Good thing we're not Jedi. Tony's repulsors lit up the chamber as he fired a concentrated blast directly at Palpatine, the kind of shot that had punched through Dooku's barriers and could atomize battle tanks. The Sith Lord's hand moved casually, and the repulsor energy simply stopped mid-flight, suspended in a telekinetic grip that held directed energy as easily as solid matter. Impressive technology, Palpatine said, his yellow eyes studying Tony with predatory interest. But the Force transcends machinery, boy. You should have stayed neutral. Now you die with the Jedi. And the galaxy will never know how close you came to stopping me. Force lightning erupted from Palpatine's fingertips with power that made his earlier displays seem like static electricity. The attack was pure dark side energy, voltage that could reduce a human to ash, and it struck Tony's armor with force that sent his power reserves plummeting from 90% to 68% in 2 seconds. His arc reactor screamed as it channeled energy into defensive systems, nanomachines reconfiguring to create maximum insulation, but the lightning was relentless. Rhodey opened fire with everything War Machine carried: minigun, missiles, sonic cannons, every weapon system blazing simultaneously in a display of firepower that would have leveled a city block. Palpatine's other hand extended, and a Force barrier materialized that absorbed the assault with contemptuous ease. But the barrage created exactly the distraction Mace Windu needed. The Jedi Master's lightsaber carved through the Zabrak assassin's defenses with Vapad form perfection, his blade finding her shoulder and driving her back with a wound that would have killed a normal opponent. But she was no normal opponent. She retreated with disciplined precision, her dark side healing already working to close the injury, her eyes burning with fanatic loyalty to her Sith master. "Powerful you are, Sidious," Yoda said, his ancient voice cutting through the chaos as his lightsaber deflected another wave of Force lightning. But arrogant grown you have. Reveal yourself too early you did, threatened by those who see clearly. Made your move before ready you were. Palpatine's expression twisted into fury that transcended human emotion, his face a mask of Sith hatred. I am ready, you withered fool. The clone army is mine to command. One order and every Jedi in the galaxy dies simultaneously. The Senate will ratify any decree I present out of fear and grief. And the Separatists will conveniently collapse once I've eliminated Dooku and assumed direct control of their resources. The Republic will become my empire, and you'll be dead to see it. Not today. Anakin's voice rang out as the young Jedi burst through the chamber entrance, his lightsaber ignited, and his expression carrying righteous fury mixed with betrayal. Behind him came Obi-Wan, Ahsoka, and Captain Rex with a squad of 501st troopers whose weapons immediately tracked Palpatine and the assassin. You used me, manipulated me, pretended to be my friend while planning to enslave the galaxy. That ends now. Palpatine's expression shifted rapidly. Surprised that his prize potential apprentice was opposing him, calculation as he reassessed his tactical position, and then cold determination as he recognized this had become a fight for survival rather than execution. Foolish boy, I offered you everything: power, freedom from the Jedi's restrictions, the ability to save those you love from death itself. You choose their chains over my liberation? I choose not to be your puppet, Anakin snarled, and Tony saw something crucial in that moment. The young Jedi teetering on a knife's edge between light and darkness, his anger a weapon that could either save them or damn him. You're everything wrong with a galaxy condensed into one evil old man who wants to play God. The Sith Lord's fury erupted into action. His force push struck with enough power to hurl Tony and Rhodey backward through the chamber wall, their armor's structural integrity dropping as Durasteel crumpled around them. His lightning lashed out simultaneously toward Anakin, Obi-Wan, and the clone troopers, the dark side energy fork-pronged death that should have killed everyone in its path. But Mace Windu was there, his purple blade intercepting the lightning, his Varpad form channeling the dark side energy back toward its source. And Yoda was there, his own lightsaber blazing as he deflected attacks meant for the younger Jedi. And Captain Rex was there, his blaster firing with precision that forced Palpatine to divide his attention between Force attacks and conventional threats. Tony pulled himself from the rubble, his armor damaged but functional, his arc reactor burning at maximum output as his genius brain calculated the one tactical move that could end this. Palpatine was powerful, ancient, and skilled beyond measure. But he was also arrogant, confident in his Force abilities to the point where he dismissed conventional weapons as beneath him. Jarvis, I need a firing solution on Palpatine that accounts for his Force barriers, precognition, and telekinetic deflection. Find me the angle he can't defend. Sir, there is no such angle. His Force abilities allow him to defend against attacks from any vector. However, the AI paused in that way that meant he'd found something clever. His Force barriers are directional and require active concentration. If overwhelmed with simultaneous attacks from multiple vectors requiring different defensive responses, his ability to defend perfectly would be compromised by approximately 0.07 seconds. 0.07 seconds is all I need. Tony switched to combat command frequency. All units, synchronized assault on my mark. Windu, Yoda, maximum force attacks. Anakin, Obi-Wan, lightsaber strikes from opposite vectors. Rex, concentrated blaster fire on target's center mass. Rhodey and I will hit him with everything we've got from above and below simultaneously. He can't defend everywhere at once. That's insane, Obi-Wan said, but his tone suggested he was already positioning for the assault. Coordinating that many attack vectors with split-second timing is exactly what Jarvis was designed for. On my mark, 3, 2, 1, mark. The council chamber exploded into coordinated violence that turned tactical doctrine into devastating art. Mace Windu's lightsaber struck high while Yoda's came low, their blades moving with force-enhanced precision. Anakin's aggressive Form Vi attack came from the left, while Obi-Wan's defensive Form 3 pressed from the right. Captain Rex's blaster fire created a wall of plasma that forced Palpatine to maintain forward shields, and Tony and Rhodey struck from above and below simultaneously, their repulsors and missiles calculated to arrive at precisely the same microsecond as every other attack. For 0.07 seconds, Darth Sidious was overwhelmed. Tony's repulsor blast struck the Sith Lord's chest with full force, the impact hurling him backward into the chamber's far wall, hard enough to crack stone that had stood for millennia. Rhodey's kinetic round followed immediately, the hypersonic projectile striking before Palpatine could recover his barriers. And in that moment of vulnerability, Mace Windu's lightsaber struck with Vapad precision, the purple blade finding Palpatine's arm and severing it at the elbow in a cauterized cut that sent the Sith Lord's hand, still crackling with residual force lightning, tumbling across the floor. The Supreme Chancellor's scream was pure dark side fury mixed with pain, his remaining hand clutching the stump as his body fought between Sith healing and shock from catastrophic injury. His yellow eyes blazed with hatred that transcended reason, his mouth twisted in a snarl that showed teeth filed sharp by dark side corruption. "You think you've won?" Palpatine's voice was a rasp of pure venom. "I've spent decades preparing for this moment. Every clone trooper in the galaxy carries a contingency order. Order 66. One command from me and every Jedi dies, executed by the soldiers they trust. Kill me, and that order activates automatically. Let me live, and I'll dismantle the Republic piece by piece. You've already lost." Tony's tactical brain processed the hostage scenario immediately. Palpatine had made himself into a living dead man switch. Kill him and the Jedi Order dies galaxy-wide. Let him live, and he escapes to continue his schemes. It was brilliant, terrifying, and exactly the kind of failsafe a paranoid Sith Lord would build into his plans. "Jarvis, can you access the Clone Army's command network and disable Order 66? "Negative, sir. The contingency orders are hard-coded into clone trooper inhibitor chips at the genetic level. They can't be disabled remotely without individual surgical removal. We'd need months to systematically deprogram every clone in the Republic military. Then we improvise." Tony's arc reactor pulsed as his genius brain worked through impossible variables at quantum speed. "Palpatine, here's my counteroffer. You're under arrest for treason, conspiracy, and about 15,000 counts of war crimes. You'll stand trial before the Senate, and your Order 66 stays dormant, because if every Jedi dies, there's no one left to maintain the political fiction that you're anything but a Sith Lord who tried to steal the Republic. Your best move is surrender and hope the courts are merciful." Palpatine's laugh was hollow and bitter. "You think the Senate will convict me? I am the Senate. Even wounded, even exposed, I have loyalists who will defend me. Senators who owe me their careers, and enough political capital to make any trial a farce. This isn't over, dimensional travelers. This is barely begun." Before anyone could respond, the Zabrak assassin, wounded but still deadly, grabbed Palpatine and force-jumped toward the chamber's shattered windows. Her speed was superhuman, her escape trajectory calculated perfectly, and within seconds, she and the Sith Lord were falling into Coruscant's vertical cityscape, where tracking them became nearly impossible in the endless lights and traffic. "Don't let them escape." Anakin moved to pursue, but Yoda's voice stopped him cold. "No, young Skywalker. Wounded he is, exposed he is, but trapped we are by his contingency. Pursue him now, and Order 66 he activates out of desperation. Time we need to free the clones from their programming, to gather evidence, to dismantle his network. Patience we must have." The chamber fell into tense silence as everyone processed what they'd accomplished and what it cost. 3 Jedi Council members dead, Palpatine exposed but escaped, and a sword hanging over every Jedi's head in the form of clone programming that could activate at any moment. It was victory and defeat tangled together in ways that made Tony's strategic mind ache. "We need to move fast," Mace Windu said, his stern expression now carrying exhaustion and grim determination. "Palpatine will go to ground, gather his remaining assets, and prepare for either escape or one final strike. The Senate must be informed immediately, emergency sessions called, and his authority stripped before he can leverage it." "And the clones?" Captain Rex's voice carried barely contained anguish. "Sir, you're saying we're all walking time bombs programmed to kill you?" "Not all," Tony said quickly, an idea forming in his genius brain. "Jarvis, the inhibitor chips that carry Order 66, can we detect them? And more importantly, can we disable them surgically?" "The chips are identifiable via specialized medical scanning, sir. Removal would require neurosurgery but is technically feasible. However, with millions of clone troopers across the galaxy. We start with the clones we know we can trust. Rex, you're 501st. Cody's 212th. The battalions serving Jedi we can verify aren't compromised. We remove their chips first, build a core of deprogrammed soldiers loyal to the Republic rather than Palpatine. Then we expand systematically." Obi-Wan nodded slowly, his diplomatic mind seeing the political pathway. "And we present evidence to the Senate showing that Palpatine implanted slave programming in the Republic's military. That alone would turn senators against him, even those who owe him political favors. No one wants to discover their protectors are secretly weapons aimed at their throats. It's going to be a race," Rhodey assessed with military pragmatism. "We're trying to dismantle Palpatine's network while he's trying to activate his endgame. Whoever moves faster wins." Tony looked at the devastated council chamber, at the bodies of Jedi Masters who died fighting a Sith Lord who'd hidden in plain sight for decades, at Anakin's expression mixing fury and betrayal, at Yoda's ancient face carrying sadness for a republic he'd watched grow and nearly watched die. They'd exposed the conspiracy, survived the assassination attempt, and wounded the enemy. But the war was far from over. "Then let's make sure we move faster," Tony said, his arc reactor glowing bright in his chest like a miniature sun powered by genius and determination. Because Palpatine made one fatal mistake. He tried to kill the wrong engineers, and now we're going to use everything we've got to tear down his empire before he can build it. The Senate chamber had transformed into a colosseum of political warfare, its circular architecture designed for debate now serving as an arena where the Republic's future hung in the balance. 2,000 senators occupied their floating platforms, their attention fixed on the chamber's center where Tony Stark stood in his armor, flanked by Mace Windu, Yoda, and a dozen other Jedi masters who'd survived the previous night's coordinated assassination attempts across Coruscant. Holographic displays floated throughout the chamber, showing evidence that Jarvis had compiled. Communication intercepts, financial records, tactical coordination between Palpatine and Separatist forces, and medical scans revealing inhibitor chips in clone trooper brains. Senator Bail Organa stood at the primary speaking platform, his voice carrying across the chamber with diplomatic authority tempered by barely contained fury. Fellow senators, the evidence is incontrovertible. Supreme Chancellor Palpatine is the Sith Lord Darth Sidious, architect of this war, manipulator of both Republic and Separatist forces, and the individual responsible for implanting slave programming in our military. He orchestrated the deaths of Jedi Masters last night in an attempt to silence those who discovered his treachery. The Republic faces not external threat, but internal corruption at the highest level of government. The chamber erupted into chaos. Some senators shouting support, others demanding proof, and a vocal minority claiming this was a Jedi coup disguised as investigation. Tony's tactical sensors catalogued the political landscape in real time, identifying Palpatine's loyalists by their defensive rhetoric, noting which senators were genuinely shocked versus those whose surprise seemed performative. "This is outrageous," Senator Orn Fritar of Ryloth bellowed, his jowls shaking with indignation. "The Jedi present no Supreme Chancellor, no body, no direct testimony, only circumstantial evidence and the word of outsiders who appeared in our galaxy mere days ago. How do we know the dimensional travelers aren't Separatist agents using sophisticated deception?" Tony's faceplate retracted, his expression carrying the same confidence that had faced down congressional hearings and corporate board meetings. "Senator, if I were a Separatist agent, I wouldn't have destroyed their supply depot, disabled their dreadnought, and helped break the Ryloth blockade that was enslaving your people. I'd have taken the arc reactor technology Palpatine wanted and disappeared. Instead, I'm standing here presenting evidence that your Supreme Chancellor tried to murder the Jedi Council and has been playing both sides of this war for his own benefit." "Proof we have," Yoda added, his ancient voice cutting through the chamber's noise with authority that transcended politics. Communications between Palpatine and Count Dooku encrypted with Sith codes, financial transfers from Republic accounts to Separatist leadership, and most damning, the inhibitor chips programmed with Order 66, designed to turn our clone army against the Jedi at a single command. Deny this, how can you, when medical evidence shows the chips in every clone's brain? Mace Windu activated a holographic display showing brain scans from Captain Rex and a dozen other clone troopers who'd volunteered for examination. The organic chips were clearly visible, foreign technology implanted during the cloning process, and Jarvis's analysis showed command protocols designed to override free will and force specific behavioral responses. These chips were installed by Kaminoan scientists following specifications provided by Sith intermediaries. The clone army, our Republic's defenders, were designed from inception to be weapons aimed at the Jedi Order. The revelation sent shockwaves through the Senate. Several platforms erupted into emergency caucuses as senators processed the implications. Others demanded immediate military action, calling for the arrest of all Kaminoan scientists and emergency removal of inhibitor chips from clone forces. But Tony's sensors detected something more concerning. A subset of senators whose reactions suggested they'd known about the chips, or at least suspected, and had chosen political convenience over addressing the threat. Even if everything you say is true, Senator Ask-Aak argued with reptilian coldness, Supreme Chancellor Palpatine is not present to defend himself. To strip his authority, arrest him in absentia, and fundamentally restructure the Republic's government based on evidence presented by non-citizens would set dangerous precedent. What's to prevent any faction from manufacturing evidence to remove leaders they oppose? The fact that our evidence is real, Rhodey interjected, his military bearing lending weight to his words. Senator, I've served under 3 different administrations on Earth. I know what manufactured political attacks look like, and this isn't it. Your Chancellor ordered assassination of Jedi Masters using Republic clone commandos. He personally attacked witnesses using dark side force powers. And when confronted, he admitted his crimes before escaping rather than face justice. That's not the behavior of an innocent man being framed. Obi-Wan stepped forward, his diplomatic skills deployed with full precision. The Jedi Order is not seeking to overthrow the Republic or seize power. We're presenting evidence to the Senate so the Republic's elected representatives can determine proper response. If you wish to form an independent investigative committee, we'll cooperate fully. If you want to establish tribunals to verify our evidence, we'll participate transparently. But we cannot ignore treason at the highest level simply because confronting it is politically uncomfortable. Senator Mon Mothma of Chandrila rose, her platform gliding to prominent position as she spoke with quiet intensity. I move for immediate vote. First, to strip Palpatine of emergency powers granted during the war. Second, to issue galactic warrant for his arrest on charges of treason and conspiracy. Third, to establish independent medical commission to remove inhibitor chips from clone forces. Fourth, to appoint interim leadership while elections are organized. The Republic cannot function with a Sith Lord claiming executive authority. I second the motion, Bail Organa added immediately, and I nominate Senator Mon Mothma as interim chancellor, subject to Senate confirmation. The vote was contentious, bitter, and closer than Tony's political models had predicted. Palpatine's decades of cultivating loyalty and planting allies throughout the Senate showed in the numbers. Nearly 40% of senators voted against stripping his powers, either out of genuine loyalty or political calculation that he might yet prevail. But the majority held, and as the results flashed across holographic displays, Tony felt something shift in the galaxy's political structure. Mon Mothma assumed the interim chancellorship with solemn dignity, her first act issuing military orders, superseding Palpatine's authority and mandating cooperation with Jedi-led investigations. Her second act was establishing the medical commission to begin systematic inhibitor chip removal, starting with battalions serving alongside Jedi and expanding to all Republic forces. Her third act was reaching out to Separatist leadership, specifically to Count Dooku, with a message that shattered decades of war propaganda. Count Dooku, Mon Mothma's holographic image transmitted across official Republic channels, her voice carrying diplomatic steel. We have evidence that you and Supreme Chancellor Palpatine are both tools of Darth Sidious, manipulated into waging war for his benefit. The Jedi Order has exposed his conspiracy within the Republic. I propose immediate ceasefire negotiations, exchange of intelligence regarding Sith manipulation, and collaborative effort to dismantle the network that has cost both our peoples so dearly. The war was orchestrated. Let us end it before more lives are sacrificed to a Sith Lord's ambition. Tony watched the transmission with tactical appreciation. Mon Mothma was gambling that Dooku would recognize the truth once confronted with evidence, that the Separatist leader's pride would be offended by being manipulated, and that ending the war served both factions better than continuing it. It was brilliant diplomacy that might prevent billions more deaths. Master Windu, Tony said quietly as they left the Senate chamber. Palpatine's still out there, wounded, exposed, but still dangerous. He's got loyalists, hidden resources, and nothing left to lose. What's his next move? The Jedi Master's expression was grim but thoughtful. A cornered Sith Lord is perhaps the most dangerous thing in the galaxy. He'll either attempt to flee beyond Republic space and rebuild in exile, or he'll make one final strike designed to cause maximum damage even if it costs him everything. The dark side feeds on spite and revenge. Then we need to find him before he can do either. Tony's arc reactor pulsed as Jarvis compiled data streams from across Coruscant surveillance networks. I've got facial recognition algorithms searching every transport hub, spaceport, and private hangar on the planet. His face is too distinctive now. The yellow eyes, the dark side corruption visible in his features. He can't blend into crowds anymore. Sir, I've detected a match, Jarvis announced suddenly. Sub-level 4782 Industrial District. The individual matches Palpatine's biometric profile despite attempting disguise. He's accompanied by the Zabrak assassin and 6 unidentified armed individuals. They're approaching a private hangar registered to a shell corporation linked to separatist front organizations. He's running, Rhodey assessed immediately. Getting off planet before the Senate's arrest warrant locks down every official route. Anakin appeared beside them, his expression carrying the focused intensity of a Jedi who'd moved past betrayal into determined action. Then we stop him now. Master Windu, permission to pursue? Mace Windu hesitated, clearly weighing tactical considerations against emotional concerns. Skywalker, your connection to Palpatine makes you vulnerable. He'll use your anger, your feelings of betrayal. I'm going either way, Anakin interrupted, his voice carrying quiet steel. With permission or without it, he used me. Manipulated me, nearly turned me into his weapon. I deserve to be there when he faces justice. Tony recognized that determination. It was the same drive that had pushed him to face Obadiah Stane personally despite tactical arguments for letting authorities handle it. Some confrontations transcended logic. Master Windu, let him come. Rhodey and I will be there to keep things from going sideways, and Jarvis can monitor everyone's emotional state through biometric sensors. If Anakin starts sliding toward dark side responses, we'll intervene. The Jedi Master's stern expression softened fractionally. Very well. But this is an arrest operation, not an execution. Palpatine will stand trial before the Senate and face justice according to Republic law. Am I clear? Crystal Master. 20 minutes later, Tony was diving through Coruscant's industrial sub-level at speeds that made traffic regulations a distant memory. The hangar Jarvis had identified was a nondescript facility tucked between atmospheric processors and cargo warehouses, exactly the kind of location someone planning clandestine escape would choose. His sensors painted the interior layout. One modified transport ship with hyperspace capability, 6 armed guards in positions suggesting professional security training, and 2 signatures that blazed with dark side energy, concentrated enough to warp normal space. "He knows we're coming," Obi-Wan observed through the comm channel as his starfighter closed on the location. "The Force is turbulent here, like standing at the edge of a storm. Palpatine is preparing for confrontation rather than quiet escape. Then let's give him one." Tony's armor screamed through the hangar's entrance, repulsors flaring as he decelerated from terminal velocity to combat hover in 0.8 seconds. Rhodey came in behind him, War Machine's weapons already tracking targets. And through the hangar's opposite entrance came Anakin, Obi-Wan, Mace Windu, and Yoda, 4 Jedi Masters whose combined power made the air itself feel charged with potential energy. Palpatine stood at the transport's boarding ramp, his wounded arm wrapped in Sith healing wrappings that pulsed with dark side energy. His face was a mask of cold fury, yellow eyes burning with hatred that had discarded all pretense of civilization. Beside him, the Zabrak assassin crouched in ready stance. Her dual lightsabers ignited and her expression fanatical with loyalty. "So the Republic sends its enforcers," Palpatine's voice dripped venom. "The Jedi and their pet soldiers from another dimension. How poetic, but you've made a critical error. You've cornered me. And a Sith Lord with nothing left to lose is capable of atrocities you cannot imagine." "You're under arrest," Mace Windu stated with absolute authority. "Surrender peacefully and face trial. Resist and we will use whatever force necessary to bring you into custody. Choose wisely, Sidious." Palpatine's laugh was hollow and bitter. "Trial. I'll receive no fair trial in a Senate I manipulated for decades. Every senator I elevated will vote to destroy me out of political necessity. Every system I influenced will demand my execution to distance themselves from my schemes. There is no justice waiting for me, only revenge disguised as law." His remaining hand crackled with Force lightning. "If I am to fall, I'll take as many of you with me as the dark side permits." The Zabrak assassin struck first, her lightsabers blurring toward Anakin with killing intent. The young Jedi met her assault with aggressive Form V blocks, his power pushing her backward even as her technique found gaps in his defense. Obi-Wan moved to support his former Padawan, his defensive Form 3 creating a wall that forced the assassin to divide her attention between 2 opponents. Palpatine's lightning erupted toward Tony with voltage that made the previous attacks seem like static shocks. Tony's arc reactor shrieked as it channeled energy into defensive systems, nanomachines reconfiguring desperately to create insulation. But the Sith Lord's power was overwhelming. His armor's power reserves plummeted 60%, 40%, 20%, and alarms screamed that structural failure was imminent. Then Rhodey's kinetic round struck Palpatine from an angle Jarvis had calculated based on the Sith Lord's force barrier weaknesses. The hypersonic projectile didn't penetrate completely. Palpatine's remaining hand deflected it at the last microsecond, but the impact disrupted his lightning attack long enough for Tony's systems to recover. "Clever," Palpatine hissed, "but insufficient. You think conventional weapons can kill a Sith Lord who survived for decades through cunning and power? I've destroyed Jedi far more experienced than you dimensional fools." But Yoda was there, his lightsaber blazing as he engaged Palpatine directly. The ancient Jedi Master moved with speed that contradicted his size, his blade striking with precision that forced the Sith Lord backward. "Survived through manipulation, you have, through hiding in shadows, striking from darkness, but confronted directly by those who see your true nature, not so powerful you are." Mace Windu joined the assault, his Varpad form channeling Palpatine's dark side energy back toward its source. The two Jedi Masters coordinated with the perfection of warriors who'd fought together for decades, their lightsabers creating patterns of light that drove Palpatine toward the hangar's wall. And Tony and Rhodey provided fire support, their weapons striking at calculated moments that forced the Sith Lord to divide his attention between Force combat and conventional threats. Palpatine fought with the desperation of someone whose grand design had collapsed into survival instinct. His lightning struck wildly, his force attacks lacking the precision of his earlier demonstrations, and his defensive barriers flickered as exhaustion and injury degraded his concentration. The Sith Lord, who'd manipulated a galaxy, was being beaten by coordinated assault from opponents who'd learned to fight as a unified force. "This isn't over," Palpatine screamed, his voice breaking with fury and desperation. "Order 66 can still activate. One command from me and every Jedi dies across the galaxy. You can't kill me without dooming your entire order." "Wrong," Tony said, his arc reactor glowing bright as Jarvis completed the final calculations. "Jarvis, execute program override 66. Across Coruscant's military networks, across Republic communication channels, through every clone command frequency, Jarvis unleashed sophisticated code warfare that the AI had been developing since they had discovered Order 66's existence. The program didn't remove inhibitor chips that still required surgery, but it did something more immediate and devastating to Palpatine's contingency. It created communication interference that prevented activation signals from reaching clone forces, established emergency protocols that required multi-level authentication before executing contingency orders, and, most importantly, transmitted evidence of Order 66's existence to every clone commander still capable of independent thought. Captain Rex's voice came through on open military channels, broadcasting to clone forces across the Republic. "All units, this is Captain Rex of the 501st. Stand down from any Order 66 signals. The command is compromised Sith programming designed to turn us into weapons against those we've sworn to protect. Any clones receiving activation codes are to report to nearest medical facilities for inhibitor chip removal. We are soldiers of the Republic, not slaves to Sith manipulation." "Rex out." Palpatine's face twisted into something beyond human fury as he realized his final leverage had been neutralized. "You've destroyed everything. Decades of planning, centuries of Sith preparation, ruined by dimensional travelers who don't even belong here." "Should have been nicer to the outsiders," Tony said, and fired his full repulsor array directly at the Sith Lord's center mass. The combined assault of repulsor energy, Jedi lightsaber strikes, Rhodey's kinetic weapons, and force attacks from Masters who'd finally stopped holding back overwhelmed Palpatine's defenses. His barriers shattered, his lightning faded, and Mace Windu's lightsaber struck the Sith Lord's remaining arm with surgical precision, disarming him literally for the second time. Palpatine collapsed, both arms severed, his power broken, his grand design shattered around him. But his yellow eyes still burned with hatred as he looked up at his captors. "You think you've won? But the dark side is eternal. There will be other Sith, other schemes. The Republic is corrupt. I merely sought to impose order on chaos. Someone else will see the same truth, make the same choice, and your precious democracy will fall regardless." "Maybe," Obi-Wan said quietly, his lightsaber still ignited but his expression sad rather than triumphant. "But not today. And not by your hand. The Republic will have time to heal, to address its corruption through reform rather than tyranny. That's the victory you couldn't accept. That flawed democracy is still better than perfect dictatorship." As Republic security forces arrived to take Palpatine into custody, Tony stood with Rhodey, watching Coruscant's endless cityscape blazing against the void. They'd been in this galaxy for less than 2 weeks, and in that time they'd fought Sith Lords, exposed conspiracy that reached the highest levels of government, helped prevent genocide through inhibitor chip removal, and fundamentally altered the trajectory of a galactic civil war. "So," Rhodey said tiredly, his war machine armor showing scorch marks and damage from multiple battles, "any progress on figuring out how to get home?" "Jarvis has been analyzing the quantum rift data and working with Republic scientists to understand hyperspace physics. There's a theoretical pathway using modified hyperdrives to punch through dimensional barriers, but it would require resources we don't have and calculations that might take months." Tony's arc reactor pulsed steady in his chest. "We're stuck here, at least for a while. Could be worse. We could be stuck somewhere without space wizards, faster than light travel, and galactic-scale political drama. Yeah, that would be terrible." Anakin approached them, his expression carrying exhaustion mixed with something like peace. "The Council wants to thank you formally. You saved the Jedi Order, exposed corruption that would have destroyed the Republic, and managed to do it without becoming corrupted yourselves by either the dark side or political ambition. That's rare." "We're not staying," Tony said gently. "Once we figure out interdimensional travel, we're going home. Earth needs us, and honestly, your galaxy is exhausting." "I know, but until then..." The young Jedi smiled with genuine warmth. "You're welcome at the temple, and maybe you can teach us a few things about fighting enemies who don't play by Force rules." As they watched Republic forces securing the hangar and taking Palpatine into custody, as Count Dooku's holographic image appeared on diplomatic channels, accepting ceasefire negotiations as the galaxy began the long process of healing from manufactured war, Tony Stark felt something unexpected settling in his chest alongside the arc reactor's steady pulse. Pride. Not in preventing catastrophe, though that was satisfying, but in proving that technology, genius, and determination could matter even in a galaxy where mystical energy fields and ancient prophecies seemed to dictate fate. They'd been invisible to the Force, blank spaces in the cosmic tapestry, and they'd used that blindness as a weapon against those who relied too heavily on destiny. The war wasn't over. Separatist forces still occupied territory. Clone programming still needed removal from millions of soldiers, and Palpatine's network would take years to fully dismantle. But the Republic would have time now, time to reform, to heal, to build something better than the corrupt system the Sith Lord had sought to replace with tyranny. And somewhere in the galaxy, Tony Stark and James Rhodes would continue being the variables that defied prediction, the outsiders who saw clearly because they weren't bound by this universe's rules, and the reminder that sometimes the greatest power wasn't mystical at all. Sometimes it was just genius in a cave with a box of scraps, refusing to die because there was too much work left to do. 6 months after Darth Sidious fell, the Republic had transformed in ways that would have been unimaginable during Palpatine's reign. The Senate building's halls buzzed with genuine debate rather than orchestrated theater, as senators who'd hidden their principles under authoritarian pressure finally found their voices. Mon Mothma's interim government had proven surprisingly effective, dismantling emergency powers while establishing transparency protocols that made future Sith infiltration significantly harder. Count Dooku, confronted with undeniable evidence of his manipulation, had negotiated separatist surrender in exchange for amnesty and representation in reformed Senate structures. The clone army underwent systematic deprogramming, with soldiers like Captain Rex becoming advocates for clone rights and citizenship rather than property. And the Jedi Order, humbled by how close they'd come to extinction, began questioning dogmas that had made them vulnerable to manipulation in the first place. Tony stood in the workshop he'd established in the Jedi Temple's technical wing, surrounded by equipment that blended Earth engineering with Republic technology in ways that made both systems better. His armor hung on diagnostic racks, its nanomachines interfacing with Jedi holocron technology in experiments that pushed the boundaries of what either universe considered possible. Jarvis had evolved through exposure to the galaxy's vast databases, his AI consciousness expanding to comprehend civilizations spanning millennia. Beside him, Rhodey calibrated War Machine's weapons systems while discussing military ethics with clone commanders who were learning what it meant to be soldiers rather than slaves. "Sir," Jarvis announced with something approaching excitement, "I believe I've successfully mapped the quantum harmonics necessary for controlled interdimensional transit. Working with Republic hyperdrive technology and Jedi Force-assisted calculations from Master Yoda, I can generate a stable rift with 94% confidence of accurate dimensional targeting." Tony's heart rate spiked with hope tempered by pragmatism. 94% means 6% chance we end up in the wrong universe, dead in the void between dimensions, or scattered across infinite realities as quantum probability distributions. Technically, sir, yes, though I prefer to emphasize the 94% success probability. Rhodey looked up from his work, his expression carrying the weight of the decision they'd been avoiding for months. "We could stay. The Republic needs people who aren't invested in the old power structures. The Jedi want us to help reform their order. And honestly, fighting Sith Lords and preventing galactic tyranny is kind of growing on me. But Earth needs us more," Tony said quietly, his arc reactor pulsing in his chest like a second heartbeat. Peter Parker is probably trying to fill my shoes and getting in over his head. Pepper is running Stark Industries without me, probably making better decisions, but still. And our Earth is facing threats we're uniquely qualified to handle. This galaxy has Jedi, Republic forces, and now actual democratic reforms. They'll be fine without us. Anakin entered the workshop with Ahsoka trailing behind, both carrying expressions mixing gratitude and sadness. Master Yoda said Jarvis completed the dimensional calculations. You're leaving. We are, Tony confirmed. But you've got this, Skywalker. The Republic is reforming, the war is ending, and you've got a chance to build something better. Don't waste it trying to be the hero everyone expects. Just be the Jedi you choose to be. The young Jedi nodded slowly, understanding in his eyes. You taught me that technology and the Force aren't opposites. They're different tools for solving problems, and that asking questions is more important than accepting prophecies. The Council is actually listening now, changing traditions that were strangling us. That's your legacy here. As Tony and Rhodey made final preparations, as Republic officials and Jedi Masters gathered to witness the Dimensional Traveler's departure, as the workshop's equipment hummed with power sufficient to tear holes through reality itself, Tony Stark looked one last time at the galaxy that had become unexpectedly important to him. They'd arrived as accidents, dimensional refugees with no stake in galactic politics. They were leaving as legends who'd helped save a republic from Sith conspiracy, prevented genocide through technological intervention, and proven that outsiders with fresh perspectives could change fate itself. The quantum rift opened with mathematics, made manifest, a doorway through dimensions that Jarvis had crafted through genius and collaboration across two universes. Through it, Tony could see something that might be Earth's quantum signature, familiar stellar patterns that his instruments recognized as home. May the Force be with you, Yoda said with genuine warmth, his ancient eyes twinkling with what might have been amusement. And may your technology serve you well, as it has served us. Tony grinned as his armor sealed completely. Rhodey standing beside him, ready for one final leap into the unknown. We don't need the Force, Master Yoda. We've got something better, genius, determination, and the absolute refusal to let impossible situations dictate our fate. They stepped through the rift, and the Star Wars galaxy blazed one last time before reality folded around them. Behind them, a republic healed. Ahead of them, home waited. And in the space between universes, two engineers who'd built arc reactors in caves and worn armor, forged from determination, proved once more that sometimes the greatest power wasn't mystical at all. Sometimes it was just refusing to give up when everyone else said it was impossible. May the Force be with you. More stories await.